There was something wrong with the newspaper's articles. The Marquis de Manette died in a carriage. Accident or murder? On Monday, a count passed away in an accident, and on Tuesday, an officer died in a fall. There, on Wednesday, a cruise liner sank, killing its navigator, and on Thursday, a young man was poisoned while drinking tea. Subsequently, news of the death was reported throughout Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The main character noticed that something strange was happening because this was already the seventh death this week, but she did nothing. There were times when the Empire was threatened by demons incapable of coexisting with any living creature. His immense power could have leveled the entire world. Then, a saint appeared, capable of communicating with demons. She saves the Empire and meets the love of her life, but her future is clouded by a villain. The former saint, Thisbe Louise Callisto. Everything she took belonged to her. Thisbe decided that the saint had stolen her place, and she was deeply offended, as well as possessed by absurd illusions. She tormented her in every possible way, but each time the saint found a wise solution to overcome the danger. Thisbe understood she was in danger, and if only she would disappear somewhere. If this imposter disappeared, she would become a true saint again. However, her latest devious plan was thwarted, and she was executed on order. And the kind and graceful saint lived happily with her beloved, a life where there was no place for darkness. This story is called The Flower That Tames Monsters. The shortened title is The Flower of the Monster. At first, she didn't even realize she'd been reincarnated in a story. More precisely, 24 years ago, she was a university student and lived an ordinary life in South Korea, but when she was walking home, she was hit by a car and woke up as a child. She woke up not in a hospital, but in a cradle. The man remarked that she looked exactly like her mother, and that it would be better if she looked like her father. The main character had no idea who these people were and thought she was dreaming. The man said that when he was still alive, she had no feelings for him. The man agreed, because this is his son, and when he spends time with his granddaughter, you constantly think about how terrible she is. The girl realized that she had truly been reborn, and into a wealthy family. She had no idea what to do. She'd heard that her parents had died immediately after she was born. She was going through another rough patch in her life. However, the master and his wife left behind the oracle's child. She was born to save the empire and make the Callisto family name shine forever. The girl didn't quite understand what they were talking about. A girl born into the Callisto family this year will save the empire from danger. Waking up in an unfamiliar world, she was momentarily confused, but then realized she had been reincarnated as a special being who had received patronage. Because of this, she was forced to grow up as a saint and savior of the empire. It all began with fencing lessons. Next comes the study of official, foreign, and noble languages and much more. She thought they wanted too much from her. She thought they would love her just because she ate well. The woman told Lady she needed to focus. Thisbe was certain they were trying to raise her like her grandfather. Such treatment was too cruel. After several years of living in this world, she realized a lot. Everything seemed painfully familiar, as if she'd seen it somewhere before. And then she realized she was in the world of the novel Monster Flower. What's worse, she was the book's villain. It has been 6 years since she was reborn, and if the book's plot continues as usual, she is certain to be executed. The main character had no idea why this had happened to her. Only then did she realize she was in a novel. She did not understand at all why she had tried all this time, because of this worthless patronage. In fact, it wasn't entirely wrong. It simply reflected a distant kinship. After all, the true saint was Estelle Leader. Born into a collateral branch of the Callisto family, she was also the novel's main character. The maid announced that the lady's carriage was ready. The girl asked how much time remained until the reception. The maid said that would be enough for her. The lady told her to tell them to wait. The woman would be down soon. When memories of her past life returned, she was exhausted. She couldn't understand how it was possible that the child of an oracle had been in such a hopeless situation since childhood. Only because the child is the god's favorite. The main character would go mad if she didn't have memories of her former life. Thisbe, in The Flower Monster, didn't bully Estelle from the very beginning. People called her a nasty creature and a scoundrel, and many of her heart couldn't take it, and she sank to such cruel acts. But this is just the villain from the book, not our main heroine who was reborn. On the way, they were supposed to stop at her favorite cafe. The servants handed her a newspaper, after which the lady thanked them for their concern. If it weren't for her situation, she would have been much more grateful. She ordered them to leave already. The girl decided that she would live her own life, and for this she endured so much. Whatever the nobles do to her, and whatever rumors they spread, she needs to get as much benefit from them as possible. She was confident everything would go well. Only a person can create their own happiness, so she intended to fulfill her duties diligently and stay out of trouble. Once the hard work is completed, the path to freedom will open. That's what she thought, until she noticed that the people who were supposed to die at her hands were suddenly dying. All of you who mocked Thisbe. That's why the main character didn't understand at all why they were dying, and continued to do so constantly. She didn't kill them after all. Perhaps there was some mistake. The carefree life that had been so warm was destroyed in a second. Where did she go wrong? We need to think about it. Of course, she tried to behave properly, so everything turned out quite well. It was recently revealed that Estelle is a true saint. A month ago, the novel's plot finally began to unfold. Many nobles had gathered for an imperial hunt. A demon attacked them, and everyone began to flee. This monster appeared suddenly, and of course, as it was written in the book, Estelle tamed the ferocious beast, after which she began to inquire if anyone was hurt. It was at that moment that the main character appeared. The sudden commotion on the lake had frightened him, but now that he'd calmed down, everything would be fine. People couldn't believe it at all. They did not understand at all how it was possible to so easily tame a monster that only a squad of elite knights could defeat. Suddenly, one of the DA asked if the oracle's child was Princess Callisto. She had been lying all this time, pretending to be a saint. If you think about it, Princess Callisto and Lady Iller are the same age, and she is almost certain that the oracle was talking about her as a saint. Princess Callisto has never had such power. It's clear what will happen to her now. Thisbe knew something like this would happen someday. She understood it, but everything she had endured as a saint had been in vain. Perhaps that's why the original Thisbe fought so hard. I wish she would be recognized in some way. But she has no desire to fall flat on her face. The aristocrats assumed she would try to justify herself, but that was no longer necessary, because everyone had seen what Lady Estelle was capable of. Therefore, no one would listen to the false saint. Thisbe turned to Estelle and remarked that it was truly amazing. It was thanks to her that they had all survived. She has such an unusual ability, and it is possible that she is the maiden from the prophecy. All the aristocrats were in complete horror, seeing that they did not think that she would be furious, but the princess gave in so easily. Thisbe noticed that there was much more noise here than she expected, and she would rather leave gracefully than be a liar. She said that now she had to leave them, and for this, she asked for forgiveness. It was perfect, and she had a perfect ending, or so she thought. It is obvious that today everything was calm, and now, when she, having refused the saint's scutulum, continues to live, people who were negatively disposed towards her are dying. Thisbe understood that she could easily be accused of murder, and her happy and comfortable life would end. She decided to ask him what had happened. She was so engrossed in reading the newspaper that she completely forgot he was with her. The man promised that he would help in any way he could if she had any problems. He asked her to let him know. This is Sor Alman Salvador, Thisbe's fiancé and the novel's villain. Thisbe told him nothing of the sort happened. One look at his face tells you she's worried. Thisbe was too focused on the newspaper, so she apologizes. A person who is stupidly gentle and sees only the good in people. Sor said I didn't have to apologize, since she often read the newspaper while having tea before. He's sweet and kind, and even in the original, Sor shows affection for his wife. He told her everything was fine and that he wanted her to enjoy her vacation. The yellow man who supports Thisbe until the very end, only to die tragically afterwards. In the original story, Thisbe began plotting to kill Estelle when it became clear she was a true saint. She would never agree, but she apparently couldn't let go of the torch and have what belonged to her taken away from her like that. She told her husband that she couldn't bear it. She asked him to make sure she was ill before the foundation festival ended. He was to mix some medicine into Estelle's cup. The weak-willed Sor could not ignore his wife's plea, but trusting her and giving her the medicine was against his morals, so he tried it himself first. Surprisingly, one of Thisbe's words turned out to be true, and he was only ill for 3 days, and then immediately recovered. It seems she had no malicious intent. Sor believed her and poured the medicine into the saint's cup. Estelle ended up drinking the mixture, which turned into poison when mixed with black tea. Eventually, Sora was arrested for crimes against the saint, and Estelle fell into a deep sleep. Even after he found out he had been deceived, he continued to defend his wife until the very end, and as she read the book, you wondered how such a fool could exist in the world. He's such a goofball, really. He was sweet, innocent, and even responsible. And as a bonus, he had a pretty face. She wanted to ask him for forgiveness for her past self and for the fact that she considered him stupid and did not know anything. However, this was the first time he'd seen her react this way while reading a newspaper, so he asked if he could ask her which article had upset her. It was hard for him to see her suffer alone. It was simply unbelievable. If he wasn't an angel, then it was completely unclear who was. Thisbe began to say that it didn't matter. She couldn't believe that such a good and pure person existed in this world. And how did it happen that he was the groom and the villain? Thisbe decided to show him the article after all. The Marquis de Manette died in a car accident, and, judging by what was written in the article, it was an accident. The accident occurred because a wheel fell off the carriage, but there's something odd about that. Soar said it says here that the Marcus's carriage was only manufactured a week ago, so he doesn't quite understand how something like that could have happened. Thisbe agreed with him and noted that everything fits together in me, that it was not an accident, but something else. Soar decided to ask her if people thought his wife did it. They believed she was to blame, since all the victims had contact with her. This is such a frivolous article. Thisbe said that at first glance, it seems like a simple coincidence. Even if it had been her, the victim would have started it anyway. They would say bad things about her right behind her back, and she would hear it all. As a result, the lady who scolded her in the salon, as well as the Marquis de Manette, who attacked her in the theater, died. It seems like she won't be able to be happy, all because she was suddenly accused of murder. Even so, thanks to her conversation with her husband, she relaxed a little. After Estelle was revealed to be a true saint, Thisbe was left completely alone. People might greet her, but nothing more. In many ways, she was uncomfortable. As soon as Soar saw the article, he immediately believed in Thisbe's innocence. The main character really appreciates this. Thisbe said that everything is fine, because it's not her fault. Thisbe was sure that the truth would definitely come out, so her husband could relax. I understand, but he is still concerned that she is enduring all sorts of humiliation. The main character thought it was illegal to make eyes at her like that. He tried to say something, but Thisbe came over and said she was fine. And it doesn't matter to her. Soar noted that she always says everything is fine, but he's afraid that's far from true. Thisbe understood this and was grateful for his concern, but it was indeed true. Soar didn't quite understand why she was so calm. Thisbe said it was because she was going to catch the criminal. Thisbe has her reasons for this. It's all because he's an obstacle to her great goal. People she didn't kill die, and she's suspected of murder. In this life, which unfolds according to the original story, she's come to only one conclusion. It's not there, period, and I need to escape. Some might ask if it's too presumptuous to think about escaping without even trying to solve the problem. It may seem like a hasty decision, but it's the best she could come up with in the current situation, a few days ago. First of all, this book is too cruel towards the villain Thisbe. Unlike the original Thisbe, who was up to all sorts of mischief, the main character meekly handed over the title of Saint Estelle. She thought that this would show that he knew his place, and therefore she would not be angry with her in front of others. But the result of her actions was even more terrible and cruel persecution. Compared to the villainous Thisbe in the novel, she seemed kind and cheerful. The prophecy was not interpreted by her, and she did not threaten to kill everyone if people did not praise her as a saint. But for some reason, they think she's the only one to blame. It's completely unclear why they're treating her this way. Secondly, if she continues to be labeled a murderer, her long-term plan will be doomed. Looking at the current situation, she'll soon be kicked out of the family. The heiress of the family, considered a saint, turned out to be a fake, and now rumors are circulating that she's a murderer. Callisto's family is honor-conscious, so they would never allow her to remain in the family in her current state. They'll likely try to quickly marry her off to Sora to take over the Callisto estate. If this happens, then, unlike in the original, her life might be saved. That's all. Obviously, there will be reasons for the end of her life. On top of that, she's very curious about what will happen to Sor. Initially, the engagement was just an agreement between the grandfather and the Duke of Salvador. But she doesn't want to shift her problems onto his shoulders. Somewhere, she'll be able to freely develop the abilities she's acquired. If there is a place where she can live a carefree life, she would be very happy. And then she remembered that there was a kingdom of magic, Sais. It was a small country, sandwiched between three powers, a kingdom that resembled a large city rather than a state. Only a few who can use magic are recognized by its people. Otherwise, it is renowned for its aloofness. No one may believe her, but she has abilities too. Although it's magic, not divine power. Holy powers and magic share common roots. They utilize mana. Depending on its nature, it is used by its owner. The only difference is that magic is used through spells. However, those who wield it are very few, and the inhabitants are almost ignorant of magic and divine power. Therefore, in the novel, Thisbe's use of magic is completely accidental. Since she was considered the chosen one, she believed it was a manifestation of her divine power. This made it even harder for her to believe she wasn't a saint, but the main character gained something from the occasion. In the original story, Thisbe mistakes her magical talent for divine power, and she trains in secret for a long time. Eventually, she learned to handle magic, as well as divine powers. But Thisbe abused this gift, tormenting Estelle, and then died without ever knowing the true nature of her powers. Although the main character doesn't know what abilities she has, she is absolutely sure that they are valuable. So, she honed her skills according to the book's contents. If one possesses such a gift, the kingdom of Sei will welcome them with open arms. A person who ends up in Sais is cut off from the outside world. They say that in this kingdom, status and position are irrelevant. After the trauma she suffered in the Empire, what could be better for her, who was about to be kicked out of her family? The protagonist believed her plan was simply impossible. That's why she came to this decision. But she never imagined that she would be unfairly denied entry into the country. While I was so excited about my plan, I forgot about one thing: the final conditions for entry into Sais. All expatriates must be free of any criminal record. Her plan is in jeopardy because she is accused of a murder she didn't commit. So she decided she would definitely catch this scoundrel with her own hands. Soar asked her again if she intended to catch the culprit. This would be very difficult. Now Thisbe understood why Soar was so worried about her. The man himself confirmed it. He's a good man. Thisbe told him not to worry, as she was an excellent swordsman. Soar said that she could still get hurt, even if she was good at it, and she shouldn't look for the criminal alone, because there are many people who can help her. Even though she hasn't been kicked out of the Duke's mansion yet, he doesn't think anyone there will be on her side. She said so herself during their last meeting. Thisbe was shocked that she'd actually said that. Since he usually listens silently, without saying a word, she thought he'd forget about it. He has an excellent memory. Therefore, the main character had no idea how to justify herself. Soar noted that their deaths might simply be a coincidence. Thisbe said that if only one person had died, that would be the case, but they were dying every day, and that raised suspicions. Therefore, she can neither ignore this article nor criticize it. If she had not been a participant in these events, she too would have suspected such a person. Soar remarked that she was so sweet. Thisbe said that she actually hoped the local newspaper would go out of business. Soar remarked that that would be great, and added that he had heard that their editorial office was mired in debt, and he thought that if they didn't pay it off, they were doomed. Rumor has it that this will happen in a few days. Thisbe was shocked when she heard this, and couldn't believe it was true. Even in the original novel, this newspaper wrote harshly about Thisbe's atrocities. Rumors spread that she was the one who destroyed the editorial office. But it turns out it was all about debt. She was ashamed and sad that she couldn't do anything, but now she's finally come to her senses. Soar added that she seemed pleased with the news. Thisbe confirmed this and said it was very good. It would be preferable for the newspaper to deliver a humiliating defeat. Soar agreed with her and said that if Thisbe wanted it, it would definitely happen. Now all they had to do was catch the criminal. Soar noted that it seemed she genuinely wanted to find the culprit. Thisbe asked if she had ever lied, and she knew he was upset, but the false accusations needed to be dispelled. We need to deal with the bigger fish, or they're about to get killed. In fact, that's the biggest problem right now. According to the novel, the next one will be Count Lunetta's son, young Mr. Lunetta. Through Thisbe, he tried to combat the inferiority complex he'd developed because of Soar, but the problem wasn't even with him, but rather with his father. It all happened because he decided to turn his back on her. He is one of the prominent counts who fight monsters on the border. His influence is truly enormous. He was the reason Callisto's family exiled Thisbe, and he was also involved in her death. If young Master Lunette died, his father would turn against her before she could even find out the truth. If that happens, she'll be cornered, and they can't let that happen. Soar said that means she's not happy they died. Thisbe said that, frankly, she felt relieved. Soar hadn't understood what the problem was at all. The difficulty is that she has become the scapegoat, and everyone thinks that Thisbe is the killer. She was surprised by this too. Of course, he was sure she had no hand in it. Thisbe noted that it was all because someone dies every day. Soar now understood what the problem was. and she was worried about it, that they were dying every day. Thisbe confirmed it. Deaths began to happen daily. If it were an accident, it would not have happened so often, and she would have had nothing to do with it. Sor said that if they died for a reason they were connected to her, then everything would be fine. He asked Thisbe if that would calm her down. Thisbe didn't quite understand why he'd suddenly brought up the subject. Sor said he was just guessing. Thisbe simply has no idea what he's hinting at, but he's still very good. The main character thinks everything is fine, because Sor is happy again. Still, he's worried, but he'll help find the criminal. The girl thought he wanted to help her. The calm that reigned that day became the beginning of all the troubles. Thisbe was grateful to him. Thisbe didn't realize it at the time. She didn't suspect Sor at all. This was partly because she considered Sor a kind and honest man. But the most important reason was Thisbe herself. It's all because she cares about the people around her. Thisbe was always surrounded by a crowd of people. She got tired of people constantly looking at her, so she closed her eyes and ears. Sor doesn't think she fully understands it. Thisbe told her lover that it was sunny today. He was so glad that she, too, had enjoyed their meeting. The lady was very grateful to him for always being so kind to her. Sor saw that her gaze was filled with sadness and loneliness. He couldn't understand why she was so sad, period, or why she always made that expression. She constantly acts as if she's saying goodbye to him. If she doesn't want to tell him, he won't ask. He only recently realized what he should do. Sor did not understand at all how these people dared to touch his bride. These bastards screamed loudly, even as they died, begging the Duke to stop, and saying they were wrong and had made mistakes. It was disgusting to watch them beg him for mercy, yet at the same time mock Thisbe with dignity. The Marquis said that if he spared him, he would never set eyes on him again. Sor believed he should have killed them in a more brutal manner. Sor's escort, Lars, greeted the Duke with joy. He asked if his master had enjoyed the meeting. Sor noted that he always asked the obvious. Lars said it was true, and he had been paying a lot of attention to his fiancée over the past few days. Sor confirmed this, and Lars said he had many things to deal with, so he asked if he was returning to the duchy now. Sor denied it. It looks like he acted very thoughtlessly. There's something he needs to take care of. Lars said it looks like he's been working overtime today, just fine. Sor said he needed to see his debtors. Today, specifically. A few days later, a secret connection between the Harrington newspaper editorial board and the foreign secretary was revealed. Perhaps it was all because of Harrington's enormous debt that Thisbe decided she was doomed. The maid asked her if she was talking about the Harrington newspaper. The mistress confirmed it. The maid said she was surprised too. As much as she didn't want them to be disgraced, she didn't think it would happen in just a few days. The maid couldn't understand how such a large newspaper editorial office could collapse overnight without anyone knowing that their boss would lose a fortune in gambling. Rumor had it they were doing well, but in the end, they'd made fools of everyone. Thisbe now realized it was true. The maid asked if the ladies knew anything about this. Thisbe said she only knew of a few rumors. The maid thought she was talking about the secrets of the aristocracy. Thisbe realized she had likely misunderstood and remarked that the newspaper was full of dirt. The maid mentioned that she would soon be meeting Duke Sora, and she thought that was something worth talking about. Thisbe agreed. Everything was fine. Her words later about meeting Sora were a lie. But if she hadn't lied, she wouldn't have been able to get out of the estate. Her grandfather ordered her not to travel anywhere for several days. As she already knows, her public image leaves much to be desired. Thisbe decided she had to leave. In the novel, The Monster's Flower, Thisbe was forbidden to go outside. The gentleman said that she should refrain from meetings for now, and this would play into her hands. Although Duke Callisto spoke in hints, he made it clear that if she, accused of murder, left the estate, nothing good would come of it. But there was one exception to the rule. The Duke said he would allow her to see her fiancé, but nothing more, and these were meetings with Sor. She had an appointment with him next week, so she asks permission if she can go. The Duke says she can do whatever she wants, but she must bring a servant. Thisbe understood that he was definitely going to follow her. Even in this way, she was obliged to leave the estate that day. Today is the day that young Master Lunette died at a black market auction, and she must prevent it. After her last meeting with Sor, which was about 2 weeks ago, she began gathering information in order to prevent the murder. Thisbe asked Sora to look and ask him if he thought the ad was a little strange. Sor wasn't quite sure what she was talking about. Thisbe said the picture showed a ring, but underneath it was written Cat's Wish. It was a combination of letters that seemed completely unrelated to the ad. It looked like there was a code. Thisbe asked if he could decipher it, But the groom replied that it wouldn't be difficult at all. He needs to write the letters in a row and decipher them. The result is a cursed ring. It seems that this is the name of the product, and the best part is, it can't be advertised openly, so the ad was encrypted. It must be the work of the black market. Thisbe remarked that the name gave it a certain charm. It was there that Lunette was killed by Thisbe. In the original, Thisbe kills him at a black market auction, and the death of the Count's son was described in detail because it was a significant event that caused her problems. The black market. It was precisely on this day that the cursed ring was being offered as merchandise. She doesn't intend to kill Lunette, but given the situation, the real criminal will definitely show up at this auction. The real Thisbe probably thought this was the perfect place to commit murder. Sor probably thought she'd never come here and figure it out. She really wanted to apologize to him. It's already sold. The auction is now open. First, she drugged the servant in charge of surveillance. It's too peaceful here for anyone to commit murder. They asked her what had happened. Thisbe had the feeling that nothing at all was happening. The man said that's usually the case. This is Malone, the guildmaster of the Information Guild. He doesn't think anything will happen today. The man sitting next to him is the guildmaster. Estelle, the main character, had many allies, and among them, the most frequent one was none other than the leader of the Information Guild, disguised as the Zodiac Cafe. According to the original, there should be no connection between him and Thisbe, but the title of saint is a huge burden, so she needed strength. Thisbe approached the guild even before Estelle went to the cognac with the Zodiac and became its real owner, and now they are at her feet, and not in Estelle's hands. The next product is a bottle filled with fragrant mist. It would have been foolish not to take advantage of her knowledge of the original novel's plot. Malone is a sign of her plans, as he's one of her few allies. Thanks to this, she was able to secure an invitation to the auction. He said it didn't seem like anything special was happening, and instead of just watching, he suggested they go out and buy something. But Thisbe forbade it. The guy started saying that the lady had taken a liking to the spellbook. It was worth 3 million gold. The lady said there was nothing to be done. It was practically impossible to acquire a grimoire in the Empire. She suggested they focus their attention elsewhere. They're not here to buy things. Zodiac said he'd do whatever she asked him to do, but he's not as good a boy as she thinks. It is completely unclear how it is possible to commit murder in a crowded auction hall, especially against the Count's son. Malone makes sense. No one would have tried to kill him in the middle of an auction. Surprisingly, that's exactly what Thisbe did in the original. Thisbe asked if this would help him be more attentive. When the guy saw the money, he said he would keep a close eye on the situation as best he could. Malone said he'd be staying with Lunette. There's little money here. Thisbe said she'd be waiting for him. Thisbe hoped there wouldn't be any problems. They announced that they were the last item left for today, and that cursed ring of marionettes. They presented that cursed ring in front of the contestants. Because of the poor lighting, she couldn't really see the ring, but suddenly, she heard a familiar voice. It was Sor's. Thisbe had no idea how he'd gotten there. The Duke confirmed it was indeed him, after which, Sor added that he hadn't expected to meet her here, and Thisbe didn't understand at all why he was at the auction. Sor asked permission to sit next to her. She wondered if the cursed ring affected a person's luck if she was in the same room with them. She doesn't want him to think of her as a black market buyer or a criminal, in the mistress's mind. Sor asked if she'd received the secret. Thisbe confirmed it, and began to justify herself by saying she needed to see something. Thisbe decided to tell him right away that this was her first time in such a place. Sor wasn't quite sure why she was whispering. After which, he said he was happy to be able to share her for the first time. It was a first for him, too. So Sor was a little nervous, but seeing her face calmed him down. Thisbe couldn't understand at all why her future groom was such an angel. If he had asked her whether she believed him, Thisbe would have immediately said that she believed him, and did not at all understand what sins he could possibly have. Sor is simply amazing. She's still uneasy about being caught, but Sor definitely won't ask any questions. Besides, the most important thing was his safety. Thisbe decided to ask him why he was here. This is a place where a murder could soon occur. Sor could be in danger. The man said he'd seen the auction advert last time. Thisbe understood what he was talking about. Sor added that she liked the ring, and that she seemed to have had a lot of problems lately. So Sor decided to give her something that would help lift her spirits. Thisbe realized Sor had come here because of her, so that you could buy her a special gift. He was thinking about her, but she couldn't tell him that she wasn't interested in the ring. She was very grateful to him for his thoughtfulness, but Thisbe didn't understand at all how he found her. After all, her face wasn't even visible. The Duke said he heard her voice. Thisbe was surprised that he recognized her only by him. Even though she had been loud during the grimoire lot, he recognized her by her voice alone. It was simply incredible. Thisbe noticed that he had acute hearing. Sor said he thought he could find her, no matter where she was. This made Thisbe a little uneasy. The lady was weak before Sor. Thisbe decided to ask him if he could find her, even if she remained silent. Sor confirmed this with a smile. Because the feeling when he touches her is special. For a moment, she was mesmerized by his whispering voice. Thisbe didn't know if she should tell him to stop whispering to her until the auction was over. Come to think of it, she was so shocked by Sora's appearance at the auction that she didn't pay any attention to it at all. She doesn't know where Lunette is or if he's okay. 320 million gold. The bid has been accepted, and the auction has come to an end. It's possible the culprit will act now, given the noisy auction, and it's easy to avoid prying eyes. If everything went according to plan, she would stay here until everything was resolved, but if the situation continued in the same spirit, then Sor would be drawn into it. Sor told Thisbe they needed to pick up the goods. The girl was shocked, as she thought they were going together. He was a kind man who had come all this way just for her, even though theirs would be a marriage of convenience. Sor was happy to go with her. Thisbe decided that she would never let him get hurt. Never, so she would go with him. She doesn't want Sor to be in danger, so she can't stay away. Thisbe noticed Malone. She needs to prevent the murder as quickly as possible. The Zodiac does what it's told. It's as if someone is staring at him. He was only told to prevent a murder. Thisbe told him not to ask unnecessary questions. Such tasks were part of his duties. If she left everything to Malone, there shouldn't be any problems. But now, Sor came here because of her. Thisbe wants to help him get out of here as soon as possible. She was so tired. She hadn't done anything yet, but she was completely exhausted. Perhaps she should go home. The princess's modest daily routine involves sedating the servants, finding a secret way into the black market, preventing a murder, meeting her fiancé at the crime scene, going on a date, and getting home safely. She'd originally planned to go straight home, but it would be sad if they parted ways like that. Sor suggested having dinner together. It was a great idea. At the end, they even treated themselves to dessert. Thisbe couldn't understand how she could say goodbye to them and leave them with nothing. She should take a bath quickly. Suddenly, the lady heard some noise and shouts, that this was all for the sake of the Callisto family, and that at the moment, the very existence of the lady further discredited their family. Thisbe didn't quite understand why there was so much noise. It seemed that other members of the family had arrived as well. The elders of Callisto. She shouldered a heavy burden and played the role of a saint to them. From an early age, she studied diligently and was also subjected to deadly trials and assassination attempts. They might not be the most pleasant people for her, but in Estelle's novel, things were different. They supported her so she could be accepted into the family. Whenever she was in trouble, they willingly provided her with the strength of their family. The Wilds were about them having to understand everything. They wanted to give Saint Estelle the Callisto family sword and restore her good name. Thisbe had always carried a heavy burden on her shoulders for them, but when she lost her value, they decided to simply abandon her. She doesn't want to hear it anymore. She's been noticed. The Duke remarked that his granddaughter has finally returned. He said that they raised their voices at the wrong time and in the wrong place, so even if she heard everything, they simply don't have the courage to say anything, so they must get out of his estate immediately. Otherwise, he will dig graves under their feet with his own hands. One of the men said it was getting quite late, and he had to take his leave. Next time, he would definitely get the answer he wanted. Looks like they'll be back. Thisbe shouldn't have stood so close to the door. The Duke decided to ask her when she had arrived. Thisbe informed her grandfather that she had returned. He decided to ask if she had returned right now, after which he thought that it was already quite late, so he asked where she had been. The lady said she had merely fulfilled her promise to Soru. Since he wanted privacy, she had sent her carriage back. Because her bracelet broke, his conversation seemed to be interrupted. The Duke pointed out that he wanted to restrain her anyway, so she needn't worry. There was something more important. The Duke finally asked if she had heard everything, the entire conversation that had taken place here. Now, Thisbe realized something. She told her grandfather that he shouldn't worry about her. Well, the man denied it and said he wasn't worried about her. Thisbe noted that it seemed she was overthinking things. A man who values family more than blood ties. Grandpa was always like that. The Duke decided to put an end to this and told her to return to her room and rest. Thisbe didn't quite understand why he didn't want to see Estelle. and the girl still couldn't understand why he had that expression. Even though she knew she shouldn't think about it, since it would soon leave this place anyway, she still continued to worry. It was the same in the past, hearing tender words from someone in difficult times. She was told she was a once-in-a-lifetime gift. Those were the days when her teacher sincerely praised her. On her forgotten birthday, she met a servant who gave her a small pincushion. It was a gift for her mistress. Thisbe trusted people and expected kind words from them, but if the person who said tender words to her had not approached her in the hope of harming Sora, if only Lunette had not insulted her, and the teacher who admired her would not have used her title of saint, and the pincushion the servant gave me, if only it hadn't been poisoned, perhaps everything would have been different. Thisbe believed that she shouldn't dwell on it because she could always break through. She couldn't sleep because she needed to find out how Malone was doing, and also read the spell book and write a letter to her future husband that she arrived without incident. Well, even if she doesn't, she thinks Sora will probably understand. After all, she's very tired today. The servant asked his lordship if he could ask why he was looking so intently at the piece of paper. Sora said it didn't matter. After their meetings, Thisbe always sent a letter to say she had arrived home, but she never sent anything. The guy asked if this piece of paper was a newsletter. A newsletter is an artifact that transfers text from one part of a newsletter to another. This artifact can be considered a luxury item, worth the equivalent of a year's county salary. The entries in the bulletin disappear after one day. His servant was shocked that he was using it to write love letters. It was the first time he had seen it in person. They say one such sheet is worth as much as a diamond mine, so he gave the second piece to Lady Thisbe. Sora confirmed this. Her face was quite sweet then. She asked him if he had split the sheet and touched it, and then asked him to return it. If there is no news from a person who always writes letters, then most likely he is already asleep. I asked if he could report back already. Sora agreed, and I told him he was listening. The young man noted that his master had made the right decision. Firstly, the goods had been delivered as requested. The winning bid was 320 million gold. As for the target, he followed his order and tried to kill the target when entering from behind the auction hall. But there was a stranger with him, and he was skilled at manipulating shadows. As far as he knew, there was only one other person on the entire continent with such abilities. And this is the master of the Zodiac Guild. He covered his tracks before he could interfere. The servant began to ask for forgiveness for that he had let his master down, but he said it was no big deal. He is no ordinary man, but a guild master, and he understands that his servant had no other choice. He has no idea why he didn't intervene, but he will investigate. He needs to get rid of those who are bullying her. Sora decided he wouldn't tolerate another failure. Perhaps he should teach him a lesson. Thisbe was in complete shock and couldn't remember when she'd managed to fall asleep. She started calling Malone and asking if Lunette was alive, holding the diamond in her hands. He confirmed it. Zodiac noted that the young lady was right, and someone was hiding, trying to figure out if it was Lunette. They hid while following their target, but when they realized they had been spotted, they immediately fled. Judging by their heightened senses, they were no ordinary people. Thisbe noted that the pursuers were quite skilled, since they were able to see even through the art of shadows. Shadowcraft is the ability to manipulate darkness. Shadow isn't just the absence of light. A different kind of shadow exists in this world. This also means that only a few will be able to defeat Malone in unlit areas. Anyone with such talents under their command will definitely try to kill him again. So they need to get rid of them. Malone reported that the lady was well aware of the steps the killer would take. Thisbe confirmed this. However, even with the guild's help, they still haven't found the killer, which is a miscalculation. It's likely that a subordinate may be more skilled than the culprit. It would be nice to at least know the criminal's intentions, because the lady doesn't understand why he would kill people. Perhaps he's an ardent admirer of the young lady. Thisbe noted that Malone's thoughts were rather naive. Since Estelle had been publicly recognized as a true saint, it was unlikely that anyone would be willing to support her now. Thisbe said it would be more accurate to say that the criminal's goal was to frame her and bring about her downfall. Suddenly, Lady heard strange shouts in the hallway. A man was asking his subordinate if he had asked him to come. Malone informed Lady that something seemed to have happened at the estate. Thisbe said she would be stepping away for a moment. The lady had no idea what could have happened. Grandfather rarely raises his voice unless it's about something important. The Duke was asked to listen to him carefully, but he reported that Lady Callisto was the only bearer of this title in the past, present, and in the future. Thisbe didn't quite understand why they were talking about this. The man was addressing the gentleman, and saying that he needed to listen to him. He asked the Duke whether it was benefiting the lady or harming the family, and noted that he knew everything perfectly well. They seemed to be misunderstanding something, and he never said he wouldn't protect Lady Iller. He supports the lady according to her position in Callisto. But the man did not agree with his words, and did not consider this protection, because he did not at all understand what benefit such support could bring. In order to protect the lady for the sake of the Callisto family, the Duke must think that introducing her as his legitimate daughter would be the best option. The Duke turned to Count Gillette and asked him if Thisbe was not one of his top choices. She had lived her entire life as the child of prophecy, and it had only been a month since they had realized they had misinterpreted it. Thisbe didn't understand why this was happening. He continued to say that even now this child was being accused of murder, and then asked if he had ever wondered how she felt. Thisbe wondered when her grandfather would understand. He'd never praised her, but for some reason he was defending her now. He always ignored her, and didn't show even the slightest interest. Thisbe decided that even if he wasn't worried about her, she had already decided to leave this house. That's why she doesn't want to eavesdrop anymore. Come to think of it, it was on the day of Count Gillette's visit that Estelle first visited Callisto's family. Something's wrong. In the original story, Estelle and Count Gillette were conversing with Duke Callisto together, so the main character couldn't understand how things could have turned out this way. Her primary goal is to avoid being cast out from her family, so she wonders if she should offer her a helping hand. Thisbe approached the carriage in which Estelle was sitting and asked her if she would like to step out for a minute. After all, she wanted to talk to her. Since childhood, she had been told the tale of the young saint of Callisto. The saint was very powerful at such a young age, and this spring she proposed opening a vault for the temple. Estelle was told she would grow up to be just as remarkable. The girl believed the saint was truly a remarkable person, and Estelle hoped that one day she would be just as exceptional. As a child, the saint was her idol, and she first encountered her at a hunting competition. And just then, suddenly, the monster appeared. Estelle knew it wasn't a monster. It was just a child frightened by a noise on the lake shore. If this continued, the saint would be in danger. Estelle knew she had no need to fear. She approached the beast and tried to tell him that he should not be afraid or worried and should calm down. Everyone was shocked that Lady Iller had tamed the monster. She was capable of doing what even a true saint could not. So everyone was completely baffled as to how this could have happened. Just think about it. Many began to speculate that Lady Estelle was a relative of the saint, so that means Callisto's blood flows through her too. Is it possible that the saint of the prophecy is someone else? It's strange that she's not a saint, but has such power. Moreover, Princess Callisto and Lady Iller are the same age, and many are sure that the saint who spoke the oracle was indeed Lady Iller. Estelle was in complete shock, because she was just trying to calm the creature down so that it wouldn't harm the saint, but she ended up causing problems for the saint. The girl had no idea what to do. The saint was probably angry with her. Then the saint approached her. And everything turned out completely differently than Estelle expected. The saint said it was amazing, and that thanks to her, they all survived. Thisbe only said a few kind words to her, and she was so sad that she could not see her again. Estelle couldn't imagine meeting her again. She even took her hand. Thisbe asked permission to greet her formally once more. Thisbe welcomed Lady Estelle to Callisto's residence. Estelle thought she was asleep, then thanked her for the warm welcome. Thisbe noticed that Lady had been sitting in the loin for a long time, so she decided to see her and asked her if she was expecting her uncle. Estelle was surprised that this was even the case. He said that she was worried about her uncle being late, and she hoped that he hadn't caused any problems. If she was like that, of course, and would take it as a problem, then yes, Estelle thought he'd done something seriously wrong, since the saint herself had decided to come down. Thisbe said she would tell what happened along the way. This greatly frightened Ethel. She was shocked to find the saint herself holding her hand. Thisbe really hoped that this girl would trust her. If she did, she would allow her to join the family. Meanwhile, in the hall of the ducal residence, Callisto announced that he had no intention of doing anything for now that might undermine the position of his granddaughter Thisbe. Moreover, she is charged with murder, and she needs family support. His granddaughter never received proper care from him. And even now, and not only this time, he deliberately avoided her because she reminded him of his dead son. All he could do was raise her so that Thisbe wouldn't be ashamed to be called a saint. The man asked if he still wanted to speak with the princess. The master ordered him to forget about it. The children cry at the sight of him. The servant tried to deny something, but the duke ordered him to take care of it. because this was a list of teachers whom he had kindled. Grandfather hired the best tutors on the continent for her and turned her life into a routine. Therefore, the child will be better off without him. He was sure that no child would love a grumpy old man who was only capable of giving orders in a commanding tone. Thisbe was injured and in pain. The maid said she would go to the doctor for medicine and tell her master. But the girl said it was better not to tell her grandfather, since he was busy, and she said he wouldn't want to hear about his granddaughter's skinned knee. It was when this little child said that all sorts of thoughts came into his head. Although he wasn't a good grandfather, he had no intention of harming his granddaughter. He said Thisbe was all he had left. The Count is a father himself, so he should understand his feelings. The man was shocked, but she said he understood what he wanted to tell him. Suddenly, the Saint and Estelle appeared there. Thisbe informed her grandfather that they had arrived. He couldn't understand why she was subjecting him to such trials. Grandfather couldn't understand what the hell his granddaughter was doing, nor why she'd brought Estelle here. The Count immediately rejoiced and asked his mistress to come closer. Just when he thought he'd finally convinced this annoying bastard, they arrived. The Count began greeting the princess and asked her how she'd managed to come with Estelle. Thisbe greeted Count Gillette and said that when she was returning from a walk, she noticed an unfamiliar carriage. She felt like there was someone inside, so she looked inside and she hoped she hadn't been rude to him. The Count began to deny it and say that Estelle also really wanted to meet the princess and asked her if it was true. Thisbe said that she had already spoken with the lady on the way here and about the reason for their visits to the estate. The Count confirmed this and said that he still had not received permission from his master to bring Estelle home. The Duke pointed out that the Count was right, and he still had not received his approval for Lady Iller to be here. Thisbe asked if he meant to say that they were going to keep Lady Estelle in the carriage in the blazing sun. According to Callisto's etiquette, they shouldn't be so harsh with guests. Grandfather pointed out that she was right. However, his granddaughter must understand what would happen if they added Lady to the family line. Thisbe asked him if he had mentioned giving Lady Estelle the surname Callisto. The Duke confirmed this and said he had no intention of accepting her. Thisbe believed he would be able to make an informed decision on his own, so she didn't want to interfere in their conversation. But she's a little concerned about the way he treats Estelle over something so minor. The Duke asked her again what she had said, and Thisbe reported that Lady Estelle would receive the support of the Callisto family. It's already been decided, and she doesn't want to make things any harder for people. Lady Estelle is the Oracle's child and must be treated with respect. The Duke told Thisbe that she did not understand the consequences of her words, but the girl said she understood everything perfectly well. Grandfather was shocked that, despite everything, it still wanted this. Thisbe doesn't mind, so she asks the master to make the best decision. After all, she wants to be exiled. That's why it didn't matter whether the saint became an adopted daughter. She already really wanted to leave for the kingdom of magic seas. Her grandfather isn't doing this because he cares about her. Thisbe thinks he's doing it so he won't be criticized for his indifference to his relative. The Duke said that if she really wanted this, he would add Lady Iller to the Callisto family. The Count was simply delighted, but the gentleman told him not to delude himself. After all, the only surname he would allow her to take was de Callisto. De Callisto is a surname bestowed upon someone who is under the control of the Callisto family but does not belong to it. The Duke cannot bestow more. It may be less than she could have expected, but that doesn't mean her grandfather won't let her stay here. Thisbe hoped Estelle wouldn't refuse this. That wouldn't happen. Estelle knew that if she became one of the Callistos, she would take away her rightful place. Previously, Estelle was told she was a saint and therefore should accept her rightful status. Estelle asked Thisbe what was going on with her. Ludi said she would also find the position she desired, and there was no need to worry. Then the girl was glad that she had become a saint, but she didn't even think about her feelings. She wanted the lady not to worry, because Estelle would always be on her side. Thisbe said she would leave them alone, so they could talk for as long as they wanted. Everything would be back in its place now. Now Thisbe needed to finalize her plans. She entered her room and noticed a new message from Sora on the desk. Apparently, a reply had arrived to the letter she had written to him recently. Thisbe can first clearly sense Manu, although this is of little use, but in this way she can see memories and even feel the emotions of another person through the conductor. While a newsletter may be convenient for communication, it is no substitute for a live conversation with a person. Through the paper, she can understand what he felt while writing it. It seemed she had fallen asleep early, so he had not received a letter from her and was worried that something might have happened to her. He was grateful that she had pleased him with such a short letter. Thisbe was pleasantly surprised, as he had been eagerly awaiting it. Soar is such a kind person. She's filled with relief and joy. Since they hadn't spoken last night, he must have been worried something might have happened. This letter is so long. He asked if she still wanted the ring that was at auction, and said that the yellow diamond on the ring matched the color of her eyes, and it would look perfect on her. The man was talking about 2 pigeons sitting outside his window. He even wrote down such small details. It was simply incredible. Thisbe wrote too little because she wanted to get in touch with him as soon as possible, but Soar wrote much more. As always, though, Soar asked if she remembered that there would be a ball at the Imperial Palace in 2 days. He didn't yet know what the dress code would be, and asked her to let him know as soon as she found out. He asked her to write him at least a few words on the ballot, and he would read them immediately. Thisbe was surprised that the ball was happening so soon. If I hadn't written to Soar, she would have forgotten about him, so I need to write a response as soon as possible. She explained that the dress code was rather unusual. This time, there was no need to match his eyes or jewelry, and he was required to arrive with a companion. Thisbe received an immediate response. Soar wrote that he understood her, and remarked that he regretted not being able to engage in conversation on the topic, as he wasn't very knowledgeable about fashion. She feels a tingling sensation in her fingers, which means he was happy to receive her answer. Thisbe decided to ask Soar if he already had a tailcoat. He's always well-dressed, even if he's unaware of modern fashion. Soar wrote that he has a brooch in the shape of a ball, created in the image of the coat of arms of the Salvador family. The reason why he is well-dressed is that all his clothes are selected by butlers, and he has an excellent understanding of fashion. Soar thought I decided that he shouldn't mention pigeons again. There were other, more interesting topics. He thinks he just mentioned them unknowingly, and then asks if his mistress had anything interesting to do today. It's so sweet. He's so charming. Thisbe wrote that Lady Estelle had recently visited them, and they had a long chat about the upcoming ball. Soar asked if he could inquire about Miss Estelle's relationship to him. Thisbe said she would receive her family's patronage. Thisbe was just about to tell him about it. Soar wanted to know if he could ask if their relationship was hostile. Thisbe paused and asked if there were rumors that she hated her. Soar denied it and said he was simply curious because she hadn't told him much. Yes, if you look at the situation from the outside, then sooner or later they will have exactly this kind of relationship, not only because they both bear the title of saint, but also because they are related by the same blood. But Estelle is such a sweetheart. She's a good person. In the original, her kind heart was the key to saving the empire. Thisbe had been bullied for so long that it seemed to have affected Sora's mental state, but her mother didn't sense anything unusual in his emotions. Thisbe was grateful to him for his concern for her, but Lady Estelle was a good person. She's kind. Soar said he understood perfectly what she meant, but she should remember that even a bad person can smile. Thisbe understands his concerns, but he shouldn't worry so much, and should trust her. He shouldn't waste his time worrying about his head, the comma in the video of the saint's kind heart. Soar decided he would remove all obstacles from her path, so she needn't worry. Soar turned to Lars. He noted that it seemed the number of their targets had increased. Lars asked if anyone else had appeared, besides young Master Lunette. If 2 more people died, the Imperial Palace could easily figure them out. Soar told him not to worry, as their goal wasn't to kill them. Lars considered this, as his master's words were cryptic. The leader of the Zodiac Guild, he used to be an eyesore, but now he knows that Estelle Iller is Aquarius's cousin. Aquarius is the leader of the Zodiac Guild and can no longer act alone. His beloved has told him the new saint is harmless, but he still doesn't want to abandon her to her fate. Zodiac will be his warning to Estelle. She won't die, but her life will be the price. She will become a murderer, and she will stand trial. That's what Mr. Soar has decided. The only S-class information guild on the continent, Zodiac. Its name comes from the 12 constellations. The title hierarchy is also borrowed from their names. The guild leader is Aquarius. Lord Aquarius bestowed the title upon the guild's strongest member, Cassiopeia, the Snow White Star. 12 people whose titles are lower than hers are named after one of the 12 zodiac signs. The problem is that one of them is his cousin Estelle. Thisbe said she wasn't a threat, but Soar wasn't so sure. Because of her excessive luck, she takes away from Thisbe everything to which she has given herself completely. Now she's decided to become part of Callisto's family. Soar remarked that their conversation had convinced him of this. Estelle's very existence was a grave threat, so he turned to Lars and ordered him to tell the butler to prepare a boutonniere. In 2 days, when all other targets are removed, there will be no one left to mock or threaten Thisbe. Sor didn't understand at all why his bride was acting as if this wasn't her rightful place. It's as if she could disappear at any moment, so he's not sure if she'll stay with him. Thisbe asked him to come to her. He must have been waiting for her for a long time. Malone noted that she was already an hour late. She ordered him to shut up because she knew. He remarked that he wasn't planning on keeping an eye on the target today. Thisbe had ordered him to do one thing: keep his cousin safe. She begs him to keep an eye on Estelle. In the meantime, she'll keep an eye on the target. Malone had no idea how she knew. Thisbe didn't quite understand what he was talking about. The man was talking about the fact that the new saint was his cousin. He assumed someone from the zodiac had let it slip, but the lady began to say that it wasn't the comma, and that the stars had simply whispered it to her. Malone noticed that she was avoiding questions by using their slogan. Thisbe was at a loss as to how to explain this to him. Malone knew she'd always been a bad actress. He said her reaction made him feel like there was a leak, and he hoped there would be no rats. After which he announced that he would contact her as usual. Thisbe asked him to be careful. Thisbe gave him information from the novel without realizing it, and this is far from the first time. Gradually, memories of the book and her past life begin to blend. Soon, her past life will be forgotten. But the only thing she remembers clearly is the plot of the novel, The Flower of the Monster. It's as if memories unrelated to this world are trying to erase themselves. She needs to be more attentive and careful. Sor was very happy to see Thisbe. The girl immediately began to apologize for being late. He had been waiting for her for so long. Thisbe told him to just look at himself, but Sor said that everything was fine, and he was ready to do anything for her. Even if she asked him to wait a whole month, he would do it. Thisbe didn't understand what he was talking about, because he didn't have to. She warned him in advance because she was afraid something like this would happen, so she doesn't understand at all why he's not in the carriage. Sor said he knew she would come if he waited for her. She wouldn't have abandoned him. Thisbe confirmed this and said that she would not do such a thing, and she is not lying. If the engagement is broken, their communication will cease. The relationship between her and Sor is different. If she's going to leave, it needs to be done gradually. But she can't do that to him, especially when he looks at her like that and asks what happened. Thisbe said she just thought he looked great today. She hoped he was doing well. If she doesn't stop and continues like this, she'll only cause him harm. But it's time for Malone to contact her. Lunette is nowhere to be seen, and she feels out of place. Perhaps she should take a walk alone. The imperial son, his majesties, and the emperor, Prince Kilian Leandros. After the sudden death of the empress's eldest son, he became crown prince. Kilian is the main male character in the novel. To think she met him again. Even if no one suspects what he is really like, she certainly knows his true face. The boy asked him why his gaze was constantly fixed on the saint. The prince said he could profit from her. So she will belong to him. That's how he behaved as a child. This deeply affected Thisbe. Prince Kilian Leandros. They often crossed paths at official events since childhood. He was her childhood friend. Perhaps when Kilian finds out she's not a saint, he'll still be on her side. She once thought everything would be exactly like this. It would have been so naive and stupid if only she hadn't heard his words. He called her a dog and said that she could be of use to him and that she could give him everything he needed. Her faith in people had always been misplaced. Lady Estelle was told she looked absolutely stunning, and she thanked them. All the aristocrats stood near her and asked for an analysis of the ambassador of people on the hunt and said that her courage deserved praise. Wherever Thisbe went, Estelle's feat was mentioned. After the hunting tournament, Estelle became the talk of every social circle. But because Callisto's family kept her existence a secret and forbade her from having relationships, people's curiosity grew even more. And so she appears, holding the crown prince's hand, a truly perfect debut for a saint. But at the same time, it was a heavy burden for Thisbe. Sor turned to his bride and asked if something had happened. Yes, things have been looking that way for so long. Thisbe feels uneasy because she's been unconsciously looking at them. So she said that everything was fine, and mentioned that maybe he was uncomfortable being under her. Everyone ignores the people around her. If Sor had been there, maybe someone would have spoken to him. Sor asked her how she could say such a thing when he didn't feel any discomfort being around her. Wherever he goes with her, he will always be happy, so she shouldn't think that way. Suddenly, the saint approached them. She was delighted to see Thisbe, who in turn was confused. Estelle said the princess looked dazzling today. Thisbe said that her dress was also beautiful, but she did not understand how His Highness, other than the prince, ended up here. The man said that Estelle was his companion, and that as a partner, he had to follow her everywhere, after which he asked if this was a problem. He's a problem. Thisbe doesn't even want to talk to him. She turned to Sora and said she was thirsty. So she asked him if he could get her a glass of cider. Sora told her to wait a few seconds. The prince turned to Thisbe. I said that it seemed that Duke Salvador did not know that the emperor was allergic to apples. Thisbe reported that they were informed that the emperor was allergic to them, and therefore there was no cider in the imperial palace. The atmosphere instantly grew tense. Even though I knew about it, she still asked the duke to bring it. She must not want to show him her true side. The more he watches her, the more interesting she becomes. Estelle decided to ask His Highness and Lady if they were by any chance close. The gentleman asked if that was the relationship they were in. Thisbe said of course not. The prince said she had wounded him to the core. After all, they were childhood friends. Thisbe never considered him as such. Thisbe noted that if you count the time they spent together, it only amounts to a few years. After learning Killian's true intentions, Thisbe distanced herself from him, but he seemed oblivious to the change in their relationship. The prince remarked that it seemed like a few years would be enough to build an entire palace. Thisbe told him to go and build it. This is the first time Estelle has seen a lady treat someone so informally, which means the two of them are quite close. Killian said she'd misunderstood, and Thisbe couldn't stand him. The lady confirmed it was exactly as he'd said. Estelle asked about a peace dance. She'd heard that, in some countries, people would ask for a dance as a sign of friendship. Thisbe was sure such things didn't exist. Thisbe begged them to do it. Uncle begged Estelle not to do it. The prince told Thisbe that they couldn't contradict her because she was a saint. Therefore, he saw no problem with them dancing. Killian told Thisbe he would lead her. The lady stepped on his foot and said she knew it. The prince noticed that she hadn't changed a bit. Thisbe wants to escape as quickly as possible, but there are too many eyes here. If she ran away from the crown prince, all sorts of rumors would start. The press was shocked to find her dancing skills were still the same. Killian's brisk pace didn't change at all. The prince noticed that she truly hated him. Thisbe told him to be honest and asked what trick he had used to bring Estelle to her. The prince said he was mistaken. Estelle herself wanted to see her. She wanted to greet her, but since she couldn't find her, he helped her a little. If he hadn't found her, he would have gone outside. Thisbe didn't quite want to believe it and asked what he hoped to achieve by doing so. He was curious to see her reaction, but most of all, he wanted to see her, his unfortunate saint. The boys were surprised because they noticed that Saint Callisto ran past them right then and there. They began to worry that she might have heard all this. The guy told the other guy that he had told him to be careful what he said. The Kell family, a prolific merchant, and the heir to the Evergeny family, which had been loyal to the imperial dynasty for generations. All of them were his future vassals. He ordered them to shut up because he would not punish them for such a mistake, but if any of the adults found out about it, they would ask him first. To win them over, he needs to find a common enemy. He's confident Thisbe has figured it out. She surpasses her peers in tenacity and intelligence, and confidently does whatever it takes to achieve any goal. Ultimately, he portrayed her as a victim. If she wanted, she could use him however she wanted. After all, they were friends who understood each other perfectly. Princip didn't understand at all why she looked at him that way. Killian turned to Thisbe and said he never thought she danced so poorly. She remarked that he was being too rude to the lady. Even though he's Crown Prince Killian Leandros, he said she'd better look at her fiancé because he's trying to burn him with his eyes. Thisbe told him not to talk nonsense, since he knew nothing about Sora, but the prince said it was the absolute truth. If she doesn't believe it, she can see for herself. He asked her to look at her unfortunate fiancé. He mentally begged her to come back soon. Thisbe told the prince that he was lying to her so vilely. Thisbe is so clueless. His gaze pierces the prince. Killian said he was truly looking forward to meeting her. It seems like there has never been a day when her name was mentioned. A new saint has appeared, and now rumors are circulating that Thisbe is a murderer. The girl was shocked that the rumors had spread so far. Thisbe's heel broke, and she knew that if he continued, she would fall. The principal asked her to be careful. After all, if she makes a mistake, rumors will spread that she's planning to kill even the crown prince. It's such a pity. Thisbe remarked that it would be wonderful if it weren't just rumors. The prince had heard that she had attempted murder, but he knows she's not capable of such a thing. Thisbe was shocked that he understood she wasn't to blame. but she didn't understand at all what he meant by that. After which, the prince told her to contact him if she needed help, to come to him if necessary. It's as if he's trying to say that if she doesn't want to be known as a criminal, she should fall at his feet and beg. What nonsense! But Thisbe doesn't understand why Killian is so sure she's not the killer. But suddenly, it occurred to her that perhaps he is the real culprit. It's entirely possible. In the novel, he achieved his goals by any means necessary. He killed people or caused them trouble simply for the fun of it. If he really is a murderer, then she should enter the tiger's den. If everything goes wrong, and Count Lunette is killed, if Malone is killed, then no one will believe in her innocence anymore, and her plan will end in failure. Then Thisbe would just die. Estelle said it was amazing, and they danced beautifully together. Sor remarked that he enjoyed her movements too. He didn't know it, because they always danced together, but from the audience's perspective, she looked dazzling. Thisbe was grateful to her fiancé. She was having trouble breathing. Sor said there was no cider, but he figured she'd be thirsty anyway. The main character feels like if she drinks anything now, she'll just throw up, but if she refuses, she'll hurt Sora's kindness. Suddenly, the prince came up to them and said that he had been moving quite a lot, but his throat was terribly dry, and asked how about giving the glass to him. Thisbe has no idea why or why he intervened, but he helped her out. She didn't mind, and asked her husband if he minded too. Sor agreed and said that he agreed with everything his fiancé said. For a moment, Sor's face turned very pale. Thisbe realized Malone had contacted her. Malone's voice was on the second-floor terrace. Something had happened, and she needed to leave immediately. Thisbe reported that it seemed her friend had been searching for her, so she needed to leave immediately. Sor had no idea which friend. Thisbe merely said she'd be gone for a moment. They wouldn't be talking for long, so it wouldn't take long. Estelle said the princess's face was very strange. The girl said she would definitely return. She snatched the saint's hand and said she would definitely return. All the aristocrats were horrified because Lady Estelle was so attentive to her, but Lady Thisbe so rudely pushed her hand away and left. Perhaps the rumors are true. Rumor has it that the false saint is the murderer. The crime may not yet be solved, but if not her, who else could be the culprit? The lady was once again misunderstood because of Estelle, so she's completely at a loss as to what to do, given that the princess has always treated her with kindness. It's obvious something happened. Estelle said she'd go after her. Princip tried to stop her, but to no avail. He finally repeated that he had told her to wait. He told Thisbe that he was on the second floor of the terrace. Since Malone was the one who contacted her first, something must have happened to him. The longer she ran, the less likely she was to see him alive. Malone always returned from missions unharmed. Thisbe thought the same thing would happen this time, but she hadn't been too careful. She had really hoped that everything would be okay. She desperately started calling for Malone, but suddenly he appeared in front of her and covered her mouth, asking her to be quiet. He's still here and could be somewhere nearby. Thisbe was absolutely terrified. Malone was wounded. The man laughed and said he knew she would come, so he started hugging her. Thisbe understood that this wasn't just a physical injury. A shadow demon was consuming him. Shadow demon. It acts as a parasite, taking the host's box in exchange for power. One wrong move, and its owner can be consumed by the demon. This ability is a weakness in itself. Thisbe needs to hurry and cleanse it with magic or destroy the demon. The bleeding is too severe, making cleansing impossible. If he's not stopped, Malone could die. There's only one way: the healing power. They had too little time to reach the temple. Malone began to choke. There was no other way, so she went to close the doors, because no one should know about what was happening here. It's her first time doing something like this, and she's unsure if it will work, so all she can do is pray for success. She's commanded all the zodiac signs to answer her call. May the 12 signs of the zodiac be blessed. These are the words written in texts related to magic and divine power. The constellation, also known as the path of the sun, connects the earthly and celestial realms. The mediums that utilize the power of the constellations are divine force and mana. Therefore, she spent a long time studying the ways of materializing mana and practicing how to borrow the power of the constellations. In addition, the inhabitants of this world believe in the existence of magical attributes, so one can only contact 6 constellations that represent a certain attribute. Although she has no specific attribute, she is able to use both divine and magical power, so she can connect with all 12 constellations. This means she has mastery over any type of magic. Thisbe was fortunate enough to learn about the constellations that can be easily contacted. They appeared and asked the young mortal why she had turned to them. She succeeded. Thisbe asked them to help, as her friend was in trouble. They told her there was too little mana and it was useless. What an arrogant fool! Thisbe said she needed help because she didn't know what else she could do. The woman told her that her desires had no place here. There are 3 main ways to harness the power of the zodiac constellations. The first is drawing only part of the energy of the constellation, known as partial borrowing. The second is a temporary manifestation of the power of the constellation within oneself, known as a manifestation. There's also summoning, where a constellation can use its power without an intermediary. Right now, I need this very summoning, and it's the most difficult of the 3 methods, because the constellation might refuse to assist the mage. Aries said she was just a beginner who had never even opened the grimoire. He apologized, but he wasn't interested in the kids. If they weren't going to help, she'd send them away. This surprised the Aries. Thisbe is taking a risk, but there's no other way. She said that if they don't want to help her, she'll call on the other constellations. Maman asked her if she was asking for too much with such intensity. Thisbe said that her friend was dying, and she wanted to save him at any cost. Zodiac said that she is not just a child, but a brave child. He was delighted, and said it would be a shame to give up a body that needed him so much. Delta Capricorn will answer her call. She succeeded, and was very happy. With this successful prize, she feels the energy radiating from her, and he values sincerity in people, and he will help her too. Even the Sagittarius agreed to help her. Aquarius came up behind her and told her she didn't hate her. She responded much more than she expected. Finally, they asked what they should do. She said not to worry, that the professionals would do what they do best. She was gone longer than he expected. The prince assumed the duke was unwell. Sor wasn't quite sure why he was asking. He hadn't expected him to react this way to Thisbe's departure. Sor apologized and remarked that they had met for the first time today. The prince wasn't sure about that. Even though Thisbe only sees him once a week, she seems unaware of his true nature. He's such a scoundrel. She'd said it so many times, and he should have realized long ago that he shouldn't talk to her anymore. Thisbe told the prince this. Killian told her that she was too cruel and asked what if her fiancé found out about her true nature. Thisbe replied that no one could know, and he was the only one with whom she communicated like that. Thisbe is kind to everyone, but in the presence of the crown prince, she behaves differently, and because of this, Sor becomes jealous. Suddenly, Thisbe ran up to Sor and began apologizing for keeping him waiting. Sor was very happy to see her. He truly felt sorry for the girl. The crown prince decided he needed to provoke him even more. He could go after her anyway. This impudent fellow must be hiding something. Sor asked if she had had a good conversation with her friend. Thisbe confirmed this and noted that he would have hated her if she had come even a minute later. A meeting with a friend, yes. More likely, she was trying to save his life. Thisbe told the zodiac signs they needn't worry, as they would be doing what they do best. They said the mortal was too much of a music lover. Capricorn noted that if this continued, the summoning would end before they could help her. Thisbe noted that there was one way. Mom was in the air, and if she concentrated on purifying it, everything would change. The girl told them not to worry about her, but asked them to hurry. Of the 12 constellations, Aquarius possesses the most powerful healing magic. So, she asks her to save Malone. His life force is weakening, but she will save him. Chaos is the most accomplished archer, so he must protect Count Lunette. He informed her that he would not dare to spoil her expectations. As for the Capricorn, who is capable of using any magic, she asks to move Malone to the carriage and protect him. Capricorn noted that it was very arrogant of her to use him as a guard. Aquarius said she could leave this man with them. Then she asked if anything had happened, as if her anxiety was being transmitted through mana. She had to hurry and go. Thanks to them, Thisbe returned quickly, even though she had used up a lot of mana, all because she had summoned 3 constellations. The crown prince decided to ask Thisbe where Lady Estelle was. This question surprised Lady Estelle, who asked if she was with them. Suddenly, she realized that she was not with them, but at first she did not notice it. Sor said that when she left them, Lady Estelle hurried after her. Didn't the lady ever find her? Thisbe was surprised that she followed her. After creating the constellations, she hadn't even thought about her surroundings. Perhaps Estelle was there. Thisbe will need to find her to find out everything properly. Since Thisbe doesn't know where she is, His Highness must find her himself. After all, she is his partner. The crown prince asked him if he could see he was talking to Thisbe. The girl realized that this prince was already in her fiancé's throat. But Sor apologized, saying he had been too rude to His Highness. He answered for his bride, because she looked tired. It seems he was extremely tactful with the crown prince. Thisbe also apologized and said that Sor was merely being considerate of his fiancée. She suggested that Killian should follow his example. He was just a little upset today. It seemed he'd taken his anger out on his lordship for no apparent reason. Thisbe thought it would be best if they left the event as quickly as possible. She didn't quite understand why his mood had suddenly soured. Leave it anyway. He will contact her soon, so she can ask her questions. Thisbe informed him that they were about to leave, and then asked him to be sure to find Estelle. It would be extremely impolite to leave his companion alone. Killian was surprised that she was already leaving. He thought she wanted to talk to him. Thisbe didn't think so. After which she told Soru that they should leave already. The Duke announced that he would escort her to the duchy. Thisbe noted that in such a case she was relying on him. Usually she declined, but Malone was in the carriage she had arrived in. He should have arrived by now, but she wasn't sure he was okay. A servant remarked that the Duke had returned quite early. Sor asked Lars if something had happened. The man paused and asked if something could have happened. That night, the pigeon seemed a little depressed. Sor asked if that was all he wanted to tell him, and then remarked that he'd done his best and could now take it into account. Lars put on his hat and started to leave. Thisbe was absolutely horrified and couldn't understand where he got that wound. This was suspicious. Then the girl decided to ask him where he had injured his hand, which made the man nervous. He replied that it was nothing, and that sometimes he trains with the Duke and forgot to dodge, and the blade hit his hand. Thisbe understood him and told him to be more careful. Lars pointed out that she shouldn't worry about him. The bandage was wet, as if the spot had been freshly applied early. Perhaps she was just overreacting. She asked how Malone was doing. Aquarius reported that he was stable and would recover very soon. They also ensured Lunette's safe return home. Capricorn noted that he hadn't used even a tenth of his power. Thisbe noted that they had done a great job and began to thank them. It's been a while since Aquarius had had fun in the human world. Capricorn told her to be sure to find him again next time, and he'll show her something amazing. Thisbe asked the archer why he wasn't leaving. The young man said she'd asked him to let him know if he saw anyone suspicious while he was guarding Lunette's. As she suspected, he was being followed. Thisbe began asking if he had seen their faces. The shooter said that he did not see it because they quickly ran away, but one of them had an early mark on his right hand. Lars's right arm was injured. It might be a coincidence, but it might not. Malone finally woke up. Thisbe was glad he had come to his senses. The boy began asking Lady where they were. Thisbe told him they were in her chambers now. They had to move him, as he was still not coming to. Malone the god was in complete shock when he heard that he was in the mistress's chambers. He started asking Lady if it was okay for someone like him to be there. Thisbe asked him to be quiet and what the problem was. After all, she had no other choice, after which she asked how he was feeling. It was simply incredible. It was as if the scars had never been there. The demons inside him are calm, so he is very interested in what his lady has done. Thisbe said she'd borrowed the power of the constellations. She'd never summoned them before, but it worked. But that didn't matter. She was very curious about what had happened to him. After all, he was supposed to be keeping an eye on Estelle and Lunette. Malone was ambushed. He doesn't know how he managed it. Well, he pinpointed his location, hidden in the shadows. It was as if he could see right through him. If not for that, he wouldn't have escaped. Malone screwed up. Thisbe asked him to tell me about himself like that, because he's one of the best. But Malone didn't think so, because he almost caught the target, and a little more, and he would have let his lady down. Thisbe told him that the most important thing to her was his life, and that they had not lost anyone tonight, so there was no reason to be sad. Well, if this continues, it will be difficult to protect targets in the future. Thisbe said that in any case, things aren't all that bad. He not only saw through the shadows, but was also prepared to resist. This meant he knew he would be following Lunette closely today. Then this is the same person they encountered earlier. Thisbe thought so too. And if her guess is correct, then he doesn't intend to kill him. Malone is an ex-husband because his mistress thinks so. He probably planned to commit the crime and then frame him. That's why he was deliberately placed on the floor to prevent him from escaping. If their plan had succeeded, everything would have stopped. The very thought of it gave him goosebumps. Thisbe knew about it. The criminal was much more vicious and agile than they thought. But what's truly remarkable is that she was able to summon the constellation. He wished he could see it with his own eyes. The forbidden texts about mana and divine power that he gave her actually came in handy. Thisbe was shocked that the leader of the Information Guild had such a hard time summoning them. Malone asked who she thought he was. The thing that helped the lady the most was the grimoire she acquired at auction. It doesn't matter, the important thing is that it was able to help her. She truly is incredible. No temple would praise her so highly, even if others borrowed their abilities. Not everyone would be able to harness the same level of power. Manifestation is stronger than partial borrowing. Invocation is stronger than manifestation. Does this mean invocation is more difficult to implement? This is indeed true. The grimoires say that the connection with the mage must be strong, but this is quite problematic due to the rapid depletion of mana. But Thisbe is doing just fine. It was Thisbe's incredible affinity with mana that convinced the temple she was a saint. But in the end, they were proven wrong. Malone asked Lady if she could still use divine power. She confirmed it. Come to think of it, the oracle spoke of a girl from the Callisto clan. She fully matches the prophecy, possessing great potential in magic and even able to harness divine power. Then he should call her a saint. Suddenly, Thisbe laughed very loudly. She asked him if he really thought that was enough to be a saint. Malone apologized for being mistaken. That was the first thought that came to his mind. Thisbe had come to ask what about Estelle then. She was a saint, after all. Everything that's happening seems strange to the boy. However, Estelle has a special ability that no one else possesses, the true power of the saint. This is a gift that will save the entire world. It seems the Empire has been invaded by a vicious monster, the result of a forbidden experiment. It seemed the Empire was destined to fall to the demon's power, but Saint Estelle, with her ability to communicate with demons, influenced the monster and created an army for defense. Suddenly, Thisbe wondered what happened next. Perhaps because she read the ending so long ago, she didn't remember it at all. Well, since she's the main character, she should win this one without any problems. Malone, ask her what they'll do next. After all, he believed they had to catch the criminal as quickly as possible. Thisbe noted that Sora's servant was extremely suspicious. According to the shooter, the criminal's palm was pierced by an arrow. His assistant, Sora, had been in the same spot earlier. Malone was in complete shock, after which he said that this doesn't mean anything, because she really wants to say that the real killer is his lordship Sor. Thisbe wasn't sure that was possible. Malone pointed out that it wasn't impossible, since the Duke was crazy about her. Perhaps he was trying to eliminate those who posed a threat to her. Thisbe knows what he's trying to say. But Sor is her fiancé. Sor trusts her, so she's not quick to blame him. Malone agreed and suggested she wait and see what happens next. He knows her fiancé is her greatest weakness. Sor was shocked that Lars had lost sight of his target. It seemed he was one mistake away. So that plan, too, had gone awry. Sor wondered how he could punish Lars for this oversight. Lars said he did everything as his master ordered. First, he mortally wounded the Zodiac leader and left him to take care of Count Lunetta. But he, on the verge of death, disappeared somewhere. That's exactly how it was. Sor knew Lars couldn't lie. Someone like him wouldn't have missed it. The fact that the guild leader was able to escape in such a state means someone helped him. While his hands heal, he will be on probation, and now he must leave the sight of the master. Lars was grateful for his kindness. He had even mentally accepted that achieving his final goal would be so difficult. He wanted to complete the job perfectly. And in the end, today, he couldn't finish him off. Marinette's cursed ring was in his hands. It was bought on the black market in an attempt to dispose of Lunette. Its history is quite intriguing. It is said that the previous owner of this ring killed her lover with her own hands. If it truly was cursed, then in his final moments, she would be by his side. He hoped she would look only at him. Sor had been dreaming about this since their first meeting. It happened several years ago, in Hertz, Salvador. The man asked the lady if it was that important, as the young gentleman suffered from social phobia. But now they need to establish connections with a lot of people, so she can't give it up. The woman said he doesn't like people, because he's still a child. This is Vanessa Almond Salvador, the head of the Salvador family. She asked that they not force him into anything. The man assured her that they were not putting pressure on him, but were doing everything for the Duchess. Sor doesn't want to go out, but the butler said this because he's worried about him. He agreed, and when he was at the temple, you were surprised there were so many people there. Perhaps it was because a saint was coming here. The girl asked him why he was empty-handed and was surprised that he hadn't received the gifts that were being distributed here. If you eat them, the body will be cleansed and receive divine blessings. When the boy heard about this, he realized that if his mother ate them, she might get better. The boy decided to call one of the adults. He asked him if he could receive gifts. The man remarked that of course he could, as the temple had prepared some especially for everyone. The boy was very grateful and ate it all out of happiness. It would be wonderful if Mom would come here too. I need to go back and give it to her. The man said it was sacred and should never be taken outside. If he took it, he would consider himself stealing God's grace. So you definitely have to eat here. Sor was shocked and upset when he found out about it. But he stole the gifts, because with their help, Mommy could be cured. He ran so fast that he crashed into the girl, after which they both fell. The girl said that these were holy gifts and couldn't be taken outside, so she couldn't understand how he'd gotten them in. Sor was mistaken. He was caught stealing the sacraments. Now the temple can hold his family accountable. I'm sure she'll be disappointed in him when she finds out he lied. If that happens, Mommy will definitely hate him. Sor did the wrong thing. Thisbe asked him if he was crying. The boy began to beg her not to tell the adults. Thisbe told him not to cry, because she wouldn't tell anyone, and if he kept crying, they might get caught. When the boy asked what catch meant, Thisbe didn't even know how to say it, but she ran away. Everyone tried hard to find the saint. Sor asked what would happen if she had problems. Thisbe remarked that everything was fine, but people seemed to think she was weak, so she'd say she was lying down somewhere. Sor noted that in this case she serves, and if she is caught already, then everyone will be disappointed. Thisbe didn't quite understand what was wrong with her. After all, if a person depends on other people's opinions, then she thinks they shouldn't listen to them, because only a person can create their own happiness. A person can do whatever he wants until he is caught by adults, even if they scold him. He alone is the architect of his own happiness. No one has ever told him that. When his father died and his mother became weak from illness, everyone placed all sorts of expectations on him, the heir to the duchy, which put terribly pressure, but he does not have to follow people's lead. This feeling, as long as it lasts, he can do whatever he wants. Only then did he remember the story of the Saint of Callisto, which he had heard before arriving here, a few hours ago. He was asked if he knew how outstanding the saint was. She behaves a little more maturely than adults. The boy was surprised by this. Now he understood that standing before him was the very same saint from Callisto, Thisbe Louise. But she didn't know what to do, because he had brought it out secretly, and he must be hungry, so he might take it. The boy said he was going to give it to his mother because he wouldn't be able to put a crumb in his mouth. This was how hungry he was. The girl said she was bored, but he amused her. He only stole a little, and he's already upset. Thisbe has behaved extremely imprudently, so she asks permission to make amends with him. He has so many of them. Sor asked if he could take them all with him. Thisbe said of course he could. Holy gifts that fill all things with energy. Suddenly, she heard a voice asking the saint where she was. Thisbe said that she had to go and asked him not to tell anyone that he had seen her. She is that very saint. Maybe someday they will meet again. The maid thought that something good had happened to her mistress because she did not understand why she was smiling at the bread. Thisbe said she was at the temple to give alms. She hoped he was well. Looking at him, she remembers a child she met when she was still a young girl. He brings back memories of the good old days. Thisbe took the gifts with her younger brothers, but they weren't allowed to take them outside because they had been consecrated. The temple periodically held almsgivings to garner public support. She was given this very bread, and it was consecrated. Of course, it was just bread, not the holy gifts. The fact that it had been consecrated was a lie, meant to prevent further thefts. Priests are petty. Thisbe decided to ask Emily why it was so quiet today. She assumed something had happened. Thisbe noticed that she seemed to be hiding something from her. The mistress said she would keep what she said a secret, so she could hurry. The maid said that his lordship had ordered her not to tell, but if her mistress asked, she would see everything. She also begged that she not tell her master about this. Thisbe was shocked that her grandfather had silenced her. In fact, it was the day the young lady went to a ball at the imperial palace. The elders came to them to discuss the transfer of the saint to the Callisto family. His lordship was extremely displeased. He even pulled out his sword and nearly killed one of them. In the end, he drove them all away. He said he wouldn't let Estelle become one of them, no matter what happened. Those were his words. Thisbe was very curious about what he meant by that. She still can't understand why he doesn't want to accept Estelle. And why does he keep making decisions like this, as if I did something to him before her? The maid said it was because he valued her. The mistress mustn't misunderstand her, but she knew how much she meant to him, even if he seemed indifferent to her. Suddenly, they heard the master's voice. The duke shouted, asking what this meant. Thisbe didn't quite understand. Princess Callisto had already been humiliated enough. There was nothing to be done. From that moment on, he ordered an investigation on behalf of the Callisto family to uncover the full truth about the deaths. Thisbe is his only and precious granddaughter. He is willing to do anything to clear her name. Thisbe couldn't believe that her grandfather would say such a thing. Thisbe is no longer a saint, but a suspect in murder. She only brings shame to her family name. Then why is Grandpa behaving like this? Because she's more precious to him than Estelle herself. Her grandfather's behavior is extremely surprising, but she thinks her protection is only a temporary measure. She couldn't sit idly by any longer. She had to find this criminal herself. The crown prince asked her why she had come to visit him. Thisbe asked him to simply tell her what he thought. Hadn't he provoked her in the ballroom because he wanted her to come to him? As Killian had predicted, she decided to take advantage of the opportunity. The man decided to ask what the former saint planned to do. Thisbe asked him if he thought she would trust him and reveal all her trump cards. Perhaps he is the real killer. Could this really be the only conclusion she came to after 10 days of deliberation? If Killian was a criminal, then why wouldn't she just grab him and ask the big question? Thisbe noted that she wasn't sure yet. The killer's status is high enough because she can't find any trace of him, and he's smart because all the crimes are quite planned. Killian asked again what she meant. Thisbe pointed out that he had much to gain from her fall into the mud, so she asked him to tell her whether he had orchestrated all this. The crown prince asked if she thought he was a criminal. Thisbe responded that he was at the top of her list of suspects. Killian laughed and said he'd been by her side longer than anyone else, but she thought he was a killer. There was a close bond between them, as they had been together for a long time. Only one person could make Thisbe suspect him, and this is Sor Salvador. He must have had quite an impact on Thisbe with his words. Everything changed 3 years ago when he appeared in her life. Every emperor in history has had a political companion. Killian hoped Princess Callisto would be one of them. He told her she could think about it as long as she wanted. After which, he asked if she wanted him to be near her, but he still didn't receive an answer. Thisbe remained silent. Only later, after learning of her engagement, did the crown prince realize that Thisbe had abandoned him. For some reason, after what happened, she didn't look for him, just like she hadn't then. So why did she leave him? He knows how unhappy Thisbe is, and you understand how much energy she has wasted. Because a man like her would never ruin his life out of envy, because he knows her very well. Grand Prince was sure she wasn't the killer. But right now, the accusations weren't the most important thing. Thisbe wondered what would happen if not that. The prince said it was because she couldn't discover the truth on her own. There was no way she could stand by and let this happen. If it wasn't out in the open, then she most likely did everything possible to clear her name. But the fact that she still hasn't caught the killer means she's not up to the job. Thisbe noted that he quickly figured it out, after which the lady said that everything was exactly as it was. The Callisto clan was unable to determine his identity. Now she needed to get down to business. Thisbe said that because of this, she needed the help he had mentioned. She asked Killian for help. The crown prince laughed and said that he could not wait for the day when she would walk before him. Of course he'd help, since Thisbe herself had asked for a favor. Thisbe didn't mind him laughing as much as he felt like it. It's all a trap to lure the criminal in. When you don't want to get involved in a fight yourself but really need to, it's best to hire someone. The person she wins over to her side must have a decisive vote and enormous influence, which will remain a win whether she survives or not. The only person fit for this is Killian, to the empire's largest annual festival, Konkukje. It is led by the crown prince, and key figures from around the world gather to watch the saint herself ascend the sacred tower to light the flame. Thisbe decided she'd seize this opportunity. If Killian was the true culprit, she could expose him at the festival. And if not, he can use it to find the real killer. This will be the best chance of catching the criminal. But if this plan fails, she will be framed as the real killer. Killian will judge her exactly as he did in the original. He would elevate himself by punishing her, accused of a crime. Since there was nothing left to pay, she waited for him to rise to the bait. It was easier than she thought. Crown Prince said he wanted to ask her something. He wanted to know if her fiancé believed her to be innocent. Thisbe confirmed this, and was shocked by how he thought of Sora. Killian asked her about it, but she said there was something that led to her suspicions. Namely, that it was someone who occupied a higher position than her and believed in her innocence. If her suspicions were confirmed, Sora would also become a suspect. Thisbe ordered him to stop since he was her fiancé. After which she asked how long he intended to blacken his name. Killian couldn't understand why Thisbe didn't suspect him. He asked if she ever wondered why the man she trusted so much wasn't helping her. Thisbe noted that she was still only his fiancée, not a member of the Salvador family, because she hadn't yet married him. Killian's words make her doubt Sora. Until now, she'd only suspected those around him, not him. For her, he's the one who supported her through tough times. You can't just blame him. Thisbe said she couldn't suspect someone who had always been by her side. Killian remarked that it was rather sad when that was said by a friend who suspected him. Thisbe said that if he had behaved appropriately from the start, like Sor, this wouldn't have happened. The crown prince couldn't believe she hadn't even suspected the duke. He's never liked Sor Almand Salvador. He doesn't know what effect his sweet words have on Thisbe. But she doesn't need a chaperone. She needs someone with power who will make her wishes come true. Therefore, he is the right partner to satisfy Thisbe's desires. A man who is completely unsuitable for her has taken the position of groom. As an ally, he must convey this to her. The crown prince really wanted to tell Thisbe that if someone unsuitable was hanging around her, it would be better to leave him. As he told me, Killian will help her. However, he's not going to do it for free. Thisbe expected this, so she decided to ask what he was demanding. He said she must break off her engagement to Sor Almand Salvador. That was his only wish. Thisbe asked if he was crazy and inquired why he was making such strange demands. Some mining rights in the east are monopolized by Callisto, or at least it would be much more profitable for her to request their special soldiers. But she doesn't understand at all what he stands to gain from breaking off her engagement. After a moment's thought, the prince replied, Killian said he didn't like seeing her with Sor. Thisbe had no idea what the man was thinking. Breaking off her engagement with Sor. Thisbe thought about it. She'd soon be kicked out of the family anyway, and later she'd leave for another country. Thisbe still doesn't understand what the reason is and why Killian is asking her about this. She doesn't know what his intentions are, but to get his support, she'll have to give in to him. Thisbe is incapable of anything, so she has no choice but to comply. Sora's reputation will suffer if he stays with her. There are already rumors that she is a murderer. They better break off the engagement as soon as possible. She noticed that the mansion was quite lively. Count Norbert approached her and asked where she had been. Thisbe didn't understand why he was here. Count Norbert was one of Callisto's most prominent elders. He's a staunch supporter of Estelle's adoption into Callisto's line. In the novel, he was the one who initiated Thisbe's expulsion, so he must be here for Estelle. Thisbe bowed and said that she had gone to the palace on business and asked if anything had happened while she was gone. The man was simply furious, because while rumors about the princess were spreading, she was mindlessly telling them around the area. He remarked that it was good that she was still young and mischievous, but she shouldn't cause unnecessary fuss. Thisbe was very grateful for the praise. She admires his courage, and therefore takes him as an example. Following his advice, she tries to stay away from foolish old people and greedy people who just want to get rich. The count, horrified, asked the princess if she wanted to insult him. Thisbe asked him how she could do such a thing. The lady said she was talking about those who denigrate the aristocracy. That's all. The count was very angry, and Thisbe knew perfectly well what he was thinking. The man noted that the princess had no idea what was happening. Estelle Iller claims she's not a holy dot. Thisbe was absolutely horrified when she heard Estelle say that. She refuses not only oral sex, but also the baptismal ritual. He doesn't quite understand why she suddenly did this and remarks that they must have had a quarrel at the ball. After which the count proudly asked the princess what she intended to do. Thisbe wondered why Estelle had suddenly declared she was no saint. After all, she had previously acknowledged her title. She didn't want to believe it at all. What she saw, how she summoned the constellations. In that case, it's clear she mistook her for a true saint and renounced the title. But if Estelle renounces it, the saint won't appear until the catastrophe begins. Estelle's don't have a high magical potential. Therefore, it must be enhanced through the baptism ritual. They need Estelle's strength to face the coming disaster. She has ordered a carriage prepared, and they are heading to the Iller estate because she wants to see Estelle in person. The player was completely shocked and asked her if she wanted to go right away. He said the princess wasn't fully aware of everything. She's been called the greatest villain of all time, and if she interferes, it will only worsen her position in society. Thisbe said that's precisely why she must do it. The count didn't understand why at all. Thisbe loudly declared that she was the main link in the problem, and therefore she was the one who had to solve it. Otherwise, people will continue to make a mountain out of a molehill. She said that if he understood everything, she would stop talking. Suddenly, someone asked the princess to stop. The voice was eerily familiar. Grandfather told me that he would call me to meet Estelle Hiller. The Count was overjoyed that he had finally arrived. The man remarked that it looked like the princess was getting ready to leave. The Count asked if she understood that she was the heir of the Callisto family. The Duke ordered that the Count be escorted out immediately, since he was not allowing him to talk to his granddaughter. Recently, rumors reached him that the Duke had defended the princess. The Count couldn't believe that his lord, who had always been indifferent to her, had suddenly sided with her. The Count had better leave. The man said that he had made a mistake, so he was leaving them, and they could talk as much as they wanted. Thisbe remarked that he seemed to have something to say to her. Grandfather offered to talk, and she agreed. Thisbe asked him if her grandfather really thought she was guilty. The man said it didn't matter to him. People will bite the hand that feeds them, and sometimes the best option is not to feed them at all. If she went to see her, the rumors would spread even faster. Thisbe said she couldn't remain indifferent. Thisbe said that she would meet her in person, and said that if Estelle agreed to go for a walk after meeting her, the rumors about her would die down. Grandfather asked her what would happen if she couldn't convince him. Obviously, that would be the case, so he didn't intend to let her go. The Duke believed she wouldn't even let her in, therefore, he wouldn't change his mind. Too many years have passed for him to dare call her his dear child, but Thisbe is in great danger. The Duke has no choice. He will simply hide her and protect her with the family's strength. Thisbe dared to ask him why he was doing this. Thisbe didn't understand at all why he had decided to protect her only now. Things were so bad today compared to her childhood. Even when she felt strong, and she was in pain and difficulty, there was no one next to her. Thisbe didn't understand why he was worried about her. Seriously, he never cared. It's not that she doesn't trust her grandfather. That happened before Estelle showed up. They tried to kill her. The maid responsible for the poisoning was punished. Her grandfather fired all the staff, but he didn't even visit her while she was ill. And such a person suddenly becomes kind and caring towards her. Thisbe cannot help but doubt her grandfather's sincerity, as memories of the days when he turned away from her flash before her eyes. The Duke said he understood that she was angry with him, but if she left now, the family would no longer be able to protect her. Thisbe said that if he had planned to protect her from the beginning, he should have done so much earlier. If things had been different, she would never have thought of leaving home. Killian suddenly demanded to break off the engagement. Estelle openly said she was no saint. Grandfather suddenly became angry with her. Thisbe was shocked by how eventful this day had become. She tried not to interfere. She didn't become like the original Monster Flower novel. In the novel, when Thisbe committed evil acts, Killian and Almaz turned their backs on her. When she was little, she was caught throwing eggs at a carriage, and that's when Killian discovered her true nature, which changed their relationship. Perhaps her grandfather had changed as well, because of her actions. Not that she hadn't foreseen it, but Thisbe doesn't understand at all why he decided to help her. Part of her has wanted to leave this place since childhood. And the other one, with all her heart, wanted to stay here. Now that she was different, the plot could change too. Perhaps even after this, when Estelle appears, she will be able to live as Princess Callisto. So she didn't want to be hated, and lived a righteous life. But Almaz and Killian, her indifferent grandfather, who never supported her, and her friend, who turned his back on her when she needed him most. Thisbe thought she'd forgotten everything, but she still feels uneasy when she thinks about that day. It all happened 3 years ago, on the day of the Crown Prince's coronation. Thisbe knew Killian would become the Crown Prince, but when she saw it in person, she was overwhelmed with mixed emotions. Perhaps it's because she senses a closeness between them. Then he said that every emperor had a political companion, so he hoped that Princess Callisto would become one of them. Killian offered her the title of Empress, and Anna is at the coronation to give her answer. Even if he finds out she's not a saint, he'll still stay with her. He's the one in whose eyes she's a girl first, not a saint. If she has such a man by her side, she might not even have to leave the empire. When Killian heard her answer, he'd say he knew it. He'd roll his eyes demonstratively. His Highness is said to have a special relationship with Princess Callisto. Perhaps it's because she's a saint. One of the men said he only wanted to marry her for political reasons. If she ceases to be profitable, His Highness will throw her out. This was all heard by Thisbe. She realized it was just like it had been when she was a child. When she was little, she was so afraid that she couldn't say anything and ran away. But she had changed. Thisbe came into the room and noticed that they were having such an engaging conversation and asked if they could clear things up for her too. The aristocrats were frightened, and one of them said that what he had just said had nothing to do with her. Thisbe said they didn't need to bother, since she knew perfectly well they were vassals of His Highness. One of them was from the Kell family, renowned in trade, and the other was the heir of the Evergenie family. And they both belonged to the prince's inner circle. When such words come from the lips of such people, she cannot take them lightly. Thisbe asked Marquis Evergenie if he could convey her words to Killian. If the prince sees her as a means to an end, then they will never be together. The Marquis had no idea what to do. If His Highness found out, he'd be finished. Another vassal remarked that all they could do was keep their mouths shut, because they shouldn't have talked about it. The prince was thinking about Thisbe being late. She was at the coronation, so he thought she'd give him an answer today. He wondered if she might need more time. From that day on, Thisbe did not leave the house, and on one such day, she barely heard the news from Malone. Malone asked her if she would continue to sit at home. Thisbe said she was fed up with everything and didn't want to date anyone for a while. She thought he didn't either. Malone told the lady that if she had decided so, then nothing could be done, but they said that her fiancé was coming to the capital, after which she asked if she had found out about it. Thisbe was perplexed and asked him what he had said. She wanted to stay home for a while and didn't think that her fiancé would return. Since Sor was busy with family affairs all this time, they never got to meet him, no matter how kindly he treated Thisbe in the original. Until they meet in person, it's best to be cautious, because who knows what will happen. Sor arrived and immediately started apologizing. The man asked him if he was very late. He then remarked that he seemed to be speaking too loudly. Thisbe sighed and said that she had just arrived too. It was such a relief. At first, she tried to restrain him, but the more they talked, the more sincerity he showed. Thisbe, without realizing it, was relaxing. Unlike talking to aristocrats, which she always got tired of since the day she met Sora, she felt lighter in her soul. If I think about it, every time she was having a hard time, Sor consoled her. Thisbe misses me. Although it's late, perhaps I should leave him a note. Thisbe was surprised that he actually wrote to her first. Sor said he picked up a pen when he thought of her. While he was drinking a cup of rooibos after dinner, his thoughts slipped away to her. After all, on the day of their first meeting, they had also drunk the same tea. Thisbe wrote that, in fact, she, too, was just remembering their first meeting. 3 years ago, when he first came to the capital, Thisbe asked him if he remembered. Sor wrote that he couldn't forget a single moment he spent with her, their first meeting, at a cafe on the outskirts. It was about 3 o'clock. The inside was decorated with freesias and lilies. Thisbe was shocked that he remembered such details. And then she asked him if he remembered how confused he was that day. Sor wrote that he didn't think she still remembered. The girl realized he was embarrassed, and that made her smile. Sor asked her how he could forget something like that, because she asked if he liked cakes, but when he answered me, she asked if he liked any flowers. Sor said he liked cakes, meaning he liked Mont Blanc cake. Thisbe remembered exactly what he said. Sor was rather awkward when he was told about his engagement to the girl the family had chosen, that she was the very saint he had pictured in his dreams. Sor couldn't contain his joy. Now he could answer her questions. Thisbe asked him to tell her why he wrote her a letter today. He doesn't answer. He's probably thinking about his answer. It seems the joke has gone too far. I should have written that she was joking, but suddenly a letter arrived from Sora. He wrote because he was worried about her. This answer struck Thisbe as odd. These words were exactly what she wanted to hear. Even though he couldn't help her, he just wanted to know how she was feeling. Thisbe really misses him. Thisbe decided that she wanted to see him right away, so she wrote to him that she would come to the garden now. And when he hears the singing, he asks him to come out for her. Now I can't leave the house, so it would be difficult to leave the estate. But today is a good day to invoke the constellation Pisces. Alrisha, the constellation Pisces. When she appeared, I noticed that she had not been in the human world for a long time. Fish said she couldn't even imagine how long she had been waiting for the call, and then asked how she could help. Thisbe said that she needed her ability to connect everything, and she wanted to go to one place. Sor didn't understand whether she really wanted to come to the Salvadors now. The sun had already set, and due to Duke Callisto's strictness, there had to be a curfew. Sor ordered the butler to tell the servants not to wander the corridors. She wasn't one to throw promises around so easily, so she will really come here just to see him. When he opened the door, he saw his beloved there. The girl asked him how he liked her serenade. Sor remarked that it was as if it were a dream. He then kissed his mistress's hand. Sor prepared for her somewhere in a hurry, and although this was not enough, he tried to do everything for her comfort. Sor noted that it was quite chilly in here, so she should put something on. The room was only just beginning to warm up, and the air was still chilly. Thisbe said everything was fine and was grateful to him. Soar said he'd get her a drink, and she could sit down in the meantime. The fish was shocked that he didn't even ask how she got there so quickly. If he asked how she ended up here, she would have to tell him about her abilities. Soar didn't ask anything, but simply greeted her joyfully. He clearly wanted to ask a lot, but tactfully didn't. He cared about his fiancée. The constellation Pisces. Thisbe was grateful for bringing her here. The fish said that if she needed anything, she could just call. Soar approached her and asked her to drink it, as it would warm her up. The girl told him to sit down too, as there was no need to fuss so much. They knocked on the gentleman's door and informed the Duke that they had brought what he had asked for. Soar noted that it was just in time and ordered it brought in. The maid brought a blanket, as it would keep the mistress warmer. The servant brought alcohol and a light dessert. Thisbe was confused, so she asked Soar what it was. The gentleman simply thought that there was a lot missing for the serving reception, so he ordered me to prepare all this for her person. After which, Soar asked Thisbe if she liked everything. The girl happily replied that she liked it very much. She was afraid she wouldn't even want to leave now. Soar said he had prepared all this with her in mind. He didn't know if she would definitely come here today, but he really wanted her to come here more often. That's why there is so much here. Soar is very glad that she actually came to him. So it turns out this was all for her. Soar confirmed this and pointed out that he hadn't prepared all this for nothing. So, he gives her all these precious things. Thisbe added that she also likes that painting and all those books on the shelves. Soar said he would have it all delivered to her the next day. Thisbe asked if he would give her the teddy bear. Soar said it was made especially for her and was glad she liked it. He didn't even object once. Thisbe was a Freuke, who expected him to give her anything she asked for. Soar said he was ready to give her everything she wanted. If she so wished, she could take everything he had. Thisbe said he needed to know what she would ask for. Soar said she could ask for anything. His status, his wealth, even himself if she so desires. He will give her everything. No matter how much he wants to get closer to her, to close the distance between them, she always takes a step back. It always seemed to him that he was only moving away from her, but now, at the most difficult moment, she herself came to him. What he couldn't tell her until now was his chance, and he didn't want to miss it. He told her again that she could ask for whatever she wanted. At some point, because of his unconditional love for her, she thought that she wanted to give up everything and rely on him. Even now, if she stretched a little more, he would simply follow her. However, Thisbe took her hand back and began to apologize, after which he said that she couldn't do that. She can't allow the tragedy that happened in the original to happen. Soar didn't understand why at all. He began to think he wasn't ready for this, but Thisbe said that wasn't the issue. No one has ever supported her, just as Soar and Thisbe think that no one ever will. Soar, horrified, asked why she was saying that. Thisbe told him he was a very good man, so she wishes him happiness. Thisbe said that if everything were fine and she didn't have to rely on him, they would have a good relationship. For now, the situation is different, and if something were to happen under the current circumstances, she is unsure that she will not use him to escape. Soar asked if she would be able to think about their relationship again if the situation changed. Thisbe understood him. Soar looked out the window and remarked on the irony. He was only happy when he held her hand, but she was depriving him of that happiness. Soar ordered Lars to bring the one he spoke with last time, because he had to meet with the renegades. Yesterday really had been dangerous. Thisbe couldn't understand how she could even think of using Sora. In that case, she's no different from the crown print. That's not right. Besides, this was the first time she'd seen Sora so disappointed. Soar so desperately asked yesterday if she would be able to think about their relationship again if the situation changed. Thisbe couldn't refuse him, but perhaps she had given him false hope if she was going to throw him the place anyway. However, thanks to this, she was able to make a final decision. A maid knocked on the door and asked if her mistress was awake. Thisbe allowed entry. The maid prepared warm water for washing. Thisbe was very grateful to Emily and asked her for something. Thisbe asked that she convey a request to His Highness, along with the letter. Thisbe wants him to visit her as soon as possible. Thisbe decided that she would not let things happen the way Killian wanted them to. Of all the impudent aristocrats, only Thisbe dares to demand that someone appear before him like this. The lady said that circumstances simply do not allow her to leave the estate yet. If she wanted a meeting, all she had to do was summon him, so she summoned the crown prince to accept his offer. Or, so Killian believed. In 2 weeks, a festival to celebrate the founding of the state will take place, but the saint responsible for lighting the sacred fire refuses to participate. Because of this, not only the temple, but also the imperial family, which organized the festival, will face difficulties, and especially those directly responsible for preparation, that is, first and foremost, Killian. The crown prince wasn't quite sure what she meant by that. Thisbe said she would solve the problem. But, as he understands, it's not for nothing, so she offers to change the terms of their deal. Instead of breaking off the engagement, as payment for his help, she will solve his problem with the festival. Killian was shocked that she was so reluctant to break off the engagement. Thisbe said he misunderstood. She will break off the engagement, but she just wants him to not interfere in matters between the two of them anymore. It's just her and Sora's problem. It's not a bad offer for him. How clever! Thisbe's proposal seems more advantageous to him, though at first she was the one asking. Now she's taken complete control of this deal, and his words about the day when she bowed before him being on the table are no longer relevant. So it turns out that he's now in the position of a supplicant, and that didn't particularly sit well with the crown prince. Killian said it was true that Estelle continued to refuse the fire infestation ceremony, and that the imperial family's authority would suffer as a result. Therefore, he will not be satisfied with the probability, because he needs guarantees of her participation. Thisbe said that he shouldn't worry about it, because she had some idea of the reasons for her refusals. Thisbe had heard that Estelle wasn't even seeing visitors yet, but she would definitely listen to her, and then she would be able to convince her. Thisbe guarantees it. No one but her could solve this problem. Killian agreed to let her tell him her plan. So, she wanted to set a trap for him. Thisbe said it wouldn't be difficult, since the criminal always used similar methods. He only killed those who insulted Thisbe. The lady herself confirmed this and snapped her fingers. Now the entire society is focused only on her and Estelle. There's a misunderstanding about her and Estelle's bad relationship. It all started with the situation at the palace banquet that day. It has now escalated into rumors that Estelle is refusing her sainthood because of her threats. In such a situation, if Estelle takes part in the festival, it is completely unclear what the criminal will do. Killian noted that he would definitely organize an attack on her, and the crowd would make it difficult to immediately identify the culprit. He certainly wouldn't miss this opportunity. It was the perfect crime. Killian saw the light and said that she was indeed right. Thisbe said that as planned, Estelle would enter the sanctuary and light the fire. Only she would go with her. The crown prince told her she had truly gone mad and asked her if she thought it was really possible. According to the rules, only one person can carry the sacred fire. Thisbe noted that he would be of assistance here. The crown prince, who is responsible for organizing everything. Killian says that if it were anything else, he would gladly agree, but the temple is solely responsible for the rules. Thisbe said that in that case, he could put pressure on them. He had to remember that until the festival, they had to keep it a secret. On the day of the festival itself, he must, by any means, let them in with Estelle, use sanctuary, and secretly place his people throughout the territory. This was in case the killer showed up, and when, as they suspected, he tried to attack the saint. And then the crown prince and his soldiers will capture him. That's the whole plan. No one yet knows about her ability to summon the constellations. This would also be a surprise for the criminal. With these abilities, she would catch the criminal. Thisbe came to ask if he had any objections. Killian said that even if there were, she wouldn't listen to them, so he suggested doing as she said. This is where it all begins. All that's left is to get Grandpa's permission to leave the house. The Duke approached his granddaughter and asked why the crown prince had come here. Thisbe had already secretly left the estate to meet with Sor. No one noticed anything, as it was not for long. The festival, in honor of the founding of the state, is a grand event that will last all day. So, to go with Estelle, she first needed permission to leave. Thisbe said the two old friends were just having a chat. The Duke understood her, but was surprised. Thisbe knew that now he had to ask permission. This is their first normal conversation since that fight with Grandpa. She can't even look him in the eye, let alone ask him for anything. It's simply impossible. Thisbe said she wanted to go to her room. Since that's the case, all that's left is to use the power of the constellations. Then Estelle, how did she appear here? And she admits that she's penetrated the secret, and thus, to make her way into Estelle's estate. Suddenly, Grandfather asked if she had plans for the evening. Without waiting for an answer, he invited her to have dinner together. The girl agreed. Thisbe hoped to find a convenient opportunity to talk, but she didn't think he would be the one to suggest it first. The Duke asked Thisbe if she was considering meeting Estelle. That was why she had invited His Highness here. Thisbe should be at ease, since there was no way her grandfather could have known about their plans for the festival. She needed to show him it was nothing serious. Thisbe said she was merely expressing her displeasure to the prince. She needed to tell the truth and correct the necessary parts with lies. Thisbe truly wanted to meet her. But she doesn't want to bother him. That way, it'll be hard for him to notice. Grandpa said he doesn't blame her for anything. The Duke noted that even if those around her tried to dissuade her, telling her that she shouldn't do that, she still always went all the way if she wanted something. Thisbe's stubbornness is so much like her father's, and her grandmother always tried to reason with the foolish boy. Her father's mother told him not to take risks with himself because he was not alone. The grandmother told her son that if he needed help, he could just tell his family. Then the grandfather did not understand why she kept repeating the same thing over and over again. But when he died, he regretted that he couldn't tell him how worried he was about him. The Duke was so upset. And then I found Thisbe inside the overturned carriage. The fact that such a tiny thing had survived was simply a miracle. He thinks that on that day, God gave him the opportunity again, and then he promised himself that he would definitely protect his granddaughter. But now, when she's in danger, he can't even help her in any way. However, if she stays at the estate, in that case, he can protect her until the public calms down. She can give him just one chance to protect him if she wants to. There was nothing like that in Monster Flower. This was the first time he had opened up to her like this. Of course, she still can't ask her grandfather, but still, since he opened his heart to her, she wants to reciprocate with sincerity. Thisbe reported that she was planning to leave this empire. Grandfather was surprised and asked her again. He assumed she wanted to flee the country. Thisbe admitted she'd been thinking about it for a long time and wanted to go to the Kingdom of Magic Seas. She wants to go there and study magic and divine powers. Initially, she wanted to leave without telling anyone. But now, everything is different. Now the Duke understands everything. Estelle's inclusion in the family register, and how she so easily gave her the place of sainthood. All this was so she could leave this place. Thisbe was never able to find happiness there. The Duke was a little surprised by this, and said that he saw that she had already made her decision, and there was no point in holding her back. The girl said she could perform however she wanted. Thisbe asked if that meant she could meet Estelle. The gentleman confirmed this. Thisbe's mouth dropped open at these words. Well, if someone finds out about this, nothing good will happen. So they'll officially announce that he's the one going to see her. And yet, meeting Estelle won't be easy. Thisbe noted that she was well aware of this. Estelle didn't receive visitors. Grandfather was even surprised that she knew about this. It was practically impossible for a lady who had only recently made her debut to suddenly be given the go-ahead. Just as he tried to protect her during their time at the estate, Count Gillette also tries to protect Estelle. He said she couldn't say this without discussing it with him. He was very angry. And he screamed and asked her if she understood what she had done. Estelle was very sad and scared. The Count ordered her to go immediately to the temple and apologize for her words. Estelle apologized for not consulting him, but she's not going to take back her words, and her uncle should understand her. After all, she's no saint. She was about 10 years old when she got lost in the forest. The little girl kept asking if anyone was there. It seemed she was lost. So the little girl had no idea what to do. She needed to get back before it got dark. Trying to find her way home, she wandered along mountain paths and encountered monsters there. Before this, the little girl had only heard about them. Estelle realized she needed to run, but her legs wouldn't move. For a moment, she was confused, but instinctively, she realized that the monsters were transferring mana to her. She was shocked that they were actually helping her. The fear she'd felt from encountering the monsters quickly disappeared. She followed them along the path for a while, and soon they reached the village. What she saw at the reception back then was no illusion. The blue figures the princess summoned were delighted to meet her. Just like when she encountered the monsters, Estelle was shocked that the princess simply hadn't realized her abilities yet. Until she tells her about it, Estelle says that it's not she, but the princess, who is the heroine of his prophecy. Estelle knew she couldn't take her place as a saint. Her uncle began to tell her that Thisbe was a nobody now, although the Duke is still protecting her with all his might, and although there is still a chance that she will become the next duchess. But this is just a chance. After all, even if this worthless girl becomes a duchess, she will only be a laughingstock to those around her. So he asks Estelle, as a saint, to restore the damaged honor of the Duchy of Callisto. She is obligated to do so. Estelle said that she saw everything. The lady has unique abilities. This is probably some kind of misunderstanding. The Count said that even if that were true, she was the prophecy's protagonist, and her abilities were proof of that. He said that her words about Thisbe being a true saint were like a declaration of war between the imperial family and the temple that had declared her a saint. The Count asked if Estelle understood that I was calling her a holy criminal, suspected of all those murders. She had insulted the temple. Uncle said he wouldn't allow Callisto's family name to be further tarnished. Until she changed her mind, she was forbidden to leave the estate. A servant entered the room and informed the lord that a guest had arrived. The Count assumed the temple had sent someone again to discuss the ceremony for the upcoming founding festival. If this is the case, the servant should tell Tyler to turn this guest back. Well, it was the head of the Callisto clan. He came in person. The Count was completely stunned when he saw him and began asking what brought him here. The Duke said that he came to talk to the saint. They say that Estelle does not consider herself a saint yet. It seemed, under the moonlight, she imagined Thisbe using divine powers. The Count was completely shocked and at the same time overjoyed. The Duke noted that since his granddaughter could not leave the estate now, he came in person. He asked to be taken to a place where he could speak with the saint. Igra said with a smile that he would prepare everything immediately. He might even be able to begin dealing with Callisto's foreign affairs sooner than he expected. The Duke sat down and announced he had something he wanted to say. He then asked Estelle if she still understood. Suddenly, the Duke began to transform and became Thisbe. The girl said it was really her. If she had come herself, her uncle most likely would not have let her in, so she had to borrow her grandfather's appearance. Estelle was completely shocked and said that meant she hadn't been mistaken. But Thisbe immediately shut her mouth and asked her not to make any noise, otherwise they would be heard. Estelle immediately began asking how she had managed to change her appearance so much. Thisbe became embarrassed and said it was difficult to explain. Thisbe used a divine-like power to summon the constellation of the twins, borrowing their ability to create illusions. Estelle noted that she spoke of it as if it were something ordinary, but even an amateur like her understood that it was an amazing power. She thinks the saint here isn't her at all, but Thisbe, so Estelle did see her during the reception. The girl immediately began to say that she hadn't done it on purpose. Thisbe pointed out that she wasn't trying to blame her, but it was simply a misunderstanding. Besides her, there are other people who can control the constellations, and you can simply go to the temple and see for yourself. Estelle, on the other hand, is the only one who can control monsters, so it's obvious who the saint is. No one else can be her. Estelle doesn't know. She's thought about it a lot, but she still doesn't fit the role of a saint. She was shocked that Thisbe claimed there was nothing special about her abilities. There are very few people who can use divine powers or magic. If this becomes known, then they will stop slandering her, and some, like her, will even believe that she is a real saint. Estelle couldn't understand why she was hiding her abilities. She begged her mistress to tell her about it. Thisbe knew there was nothing she could do, and she had to tell. She was thinking about escaping the Empire. Thisbe noticed that Lady Estelle was on the right. With her abilities, wherever she went, she would easily be hailed as a saint again. If her abilities are revealed, the Empire will not be able to get rid of her so easily. The temple and the imperial family would want to use her for their own purposes, so she decided to make this decision and leave. Thisbe simply doesn't want to be used again. All this time, she's believed the princess simply didn't know about her abilities, which is why she was unfairly stripped of her place as a saint. It turns out she's perfectly aware of her abilities. Estelle still doesn't understand whether she's fit to be a saint. Even the princess, who had spent years building her reputation, was deposed in an instant. And then there was the unremarkable Estelle. Estelle is scared. Thisbe said it doesn't matter whether she's suitable or not, since she's already a saint. Thisbe saw herself become an outstanding saint who could cope with the disaster that befell the continent. Thisbe said that no matter what people say, nothing will change that fact, and she believes in it. She probably just wanted to escape all this time. That's why Estelle convinced everyone the saint was a princess. She didn't want to become a saint from a prophecy that attracts everyone's attention. She just wanted to live as before. Estelle noticed that the princess was right, and that they couldn't ignore the facts any longer. Stop running away! That day, Estelle made the decision to always be on the princess's side. Estelle shouted that she would be at the founding festival. She would enter the sanctuary and undergo the ritual, after which she would officially assume the title of Saint of the Empire. Thisbe agreed, but first she had to tell him about her plan. They hadn't seen Lady Callisto for a long time. Thisbe said he had to understand her. After all, she hadn't been able to escape the family's watchful eye for a long time. Malone asked what she would order him to do when one of the most influential people in the guild had been missing for so long. Thisbe noted that it was always difficult to meet with influential people. She was also grateful to him, because without him, she wouldn't have been able to be away for so long. Malone still understood her and asked her who else could be trusted with such work. He asked if she knew how surprised he had been when he heard the news. She went to Lady Estelle to ask for help. He then asked if the princess had told her about the plan. Thisbe said that Estelle had been forced into this plot to capture the criminal, with her being the bait. So this girl should know. A few hours ago, Estelle said that even if it was to catch a criminal, becoming bait was reckless. Thisbe informed her that she knew it was indeed risky, but she would personally ensure her safety. Estelle said that wasn't what she meant. The lady simply doesn't want to be a hindrance. It's nothing compared to what she'll do. She asked that the princess focus solely on catching the criminal, because she'll take care of herself. When Estelle first arrived in the capital, Thisbe thought she was just a fool. Who would have thought she'd think that way? Malone remarked that this was nothing surprising. The lady, he said, thanks. What does that mean? The man said that otherwise she would never have told her about her plan, but would have simply done everything herself. Thisbe thought about it, and it pained her that perhaps that's how it would have been, because she can't completely trust other people, so she really would have done everything herself. Has she really started trusting people more? Thisbe immediately started writing this, because just because everything's been going well lately, there's no need to let down your guard. Now we need to focus on the goal, and on the problems that need to be solved. Thisbe asked Malone if he knew what she asked for. Malone said that even though it was just a cover, he was still the head of the Zodiac Guild. And of course, he did it. There was just over a week left until the founding festival. Malone has gathered all the useful information. Lord Lunette will be the biggest problem at the festival. Until they catch the criminal, they shouldn't do everything in vain. They won't be able to stop the attempt on his life. He knows too much. The one he met at the banquet back then. And now, the hired killer came for him every day. Naturally, the guild eliminates the killers. While that guy is having fun with the ladies, surveillance is also hard work. And he has a fiancé. With such a task, there won't be a moment's peace. Thisbe said, don't worry, it'll all end today. But that was already her headache. First, she'd send Lord Lunette away. She'd asked him to tell her who and where the murders had already taken place. Malone thought for a moment and said, in Glossa, Vilna, Helios. And then he was horrified. Thisbe said everything was correct, and they all happened in the very center of the capital. It seems the perpetrator is seeking publicity. Therefore, if the Lord suddenly leaves the capital, then the criminal will no longer be able to reach him. Malone just didn't understand how they would send him away, because he was confident that he would get away from any accusations with the help of his father. Thisbe said that was why she had ordered him to keep an eye on him for now. There was already a great deal of gossip circulating about Lord Lunette's behavior. Usually the Margrave brushes them aside, so what if I managed to compromise him at an important event? For example, the aforementioned dinner, the Duchess of Florentia's dinner. This event is held annually for young couples who want to get married. Nobles come there to receive congratulations or advice. Apparently, the Lord will also attend that dinner party, so they won't be suspected. Thisbe thinks he relies too much on his father's power. A duchess's word carries more weight in Soviet society, especially when it comes to events she organizes. If Lunette screws up right there, even the Margrave won't be able to help him, and entry into high society will be closed to him. He'll realize he can't hide behind his father's influence forever. He'll even feel the urge to get to work. Tonight, this dinner party brought together young couples who had promised to love each other. The woman proposed celebrating these beautiful unions. May God bless them. Thisbe was grateful to Sor for coming with him. He, in turn, apologized for not being able to spend the entire day with her. Unfortunately, he has some business to take care of, and he doesn't think he can even walk her back to the estate. Thisbe said that it was okay, since she had suddenly invited him to the evening, and, by the way, this was their first meeting since that day. Thisbe had always regarded him as the groom her family had chosen for her, but now she heard what he thought of her himself. Thisbe was more nervous than usual. Count Jack was very happy to see the princess there and greeted her. Sor noted that he was seeing him for the first time, so he asked Thisbe if this man was her friend. Thisbe said she would introduce him. This is his close friend, Count Jeff, and his fiancée, Lady Cordelia. It was they who invited their chosen one. The Count was very pleased to meet the Duke, and he said he had heard a lot about him from the lady. Thisbe interrupted him and asked if he wanted to talk to her about something. Seriously, she had asked him not to joke around. This count is Malone. He had previously asked the lady if she wanted him to come to that dinner party. It wouldn't be difficult for him to create a fake identity. Malone said the lady sees his handsome face every day, but she didn't think twice about it. The appearance of the head of the Information Guild at such a mass event could be dangerous. It would be like telling everyone he's the head of the guild. He asked why he didn't just go in there with his powers as usual. Thisbe said that this time, it would be enough for me to just get in. I would need a man for the job. And this man would be the one who would set the course of events in her favor. He said she could ask a lady she knew or a friend. He suddenly remembered and said that she didn't have any, and Estelle would refuse because she didn't want to be dragged into this. Thisbe noted that this was indeed true. Malone had said that even if his face ended up appearing on leaflets all over the empire, if that was the only problem, he shouldn't worry because they had help. When he saw his twin next to his mistress, he really almost collapsed on the spot from shock. Geminis can change the caster's appearance. Thisbe asked if he was surprised, but Malone's expression was clear enough. She came to use this trick. The count pointed to the side and told the princess to look, because there was the cake she'd wanted for so long. The man in question, Lord Lunette's fiancée, Marcia Ivrea. Although she is the Duke's eldest daughter, the wrath has fallen into disrepair, forcing her to betroth herself to the son of an influential margrave. It seemed they had been noticed. Lunette came closer and asked who it was, if it could be the princess assassin. She even dared to show up, despite her public image. She can only rely on her fiancé's reputation. Soar angrily began asking him what he was saying, but Thisbe said everything was fine, and she could figure it out herself. Thisbe remarked that this was so strange, and she never expected to hear such a thing from Lord Lunette. After all, he was the last person who could lecture anyone. Lunette angrily asked what she meant. Thisbe pointed out that this was, after all, a dinner party for engaged couples. This is no place for someone who changes partners every day. The count simply said he didn't understand what she was talking about. He asked the princess if she really believed all this vile gossip. Thisbe noted that she, too, was a victim of gossip in this case, so she only believed what she saw personally. Well, as far as he's concerned, her conclusions aren't based on gossip, since he even harassed her once. That's how it was. He felt inferior to Sora, so he tried in every way to take it away from him. The count, who was actually Malone, was completely shocked and asked her if it was true. Thisbe told the count that he wasn't a frequent guest at such social events, so he might not have known about it. At that time, the lord already had a fiancée. She decided to keep a low profile, so few people knew about it. Soar noted that after this, the lord's eyes fell. Soar also added that they needed to have a serious talk. Lunette asked if this wasn't an old story from the past. His fiancée said they should leave now, as everyone was already looking at them. She apologized for all the inconvenience her fiancé had caused. Lunette, horrified, asked why she was even apologizing here. This isn't the place for arguments, and his father should have told him so. This is an important event, so there's no room for fuss. The count realized that he only needed to be patient a little and marry this woman, and then he would finally become a duke. If that's what his fiancé wants, he'll give in this time. However, he won't tolerate such behavior in the future, and they need to know that. He just had to wait a little while. Suddenly, a woman greeted Lunette. Everyone would know his secret. She was shocked that he was there too. The count immediately grabbed her hand and led her away. Could this woman really be his lover? What a womanizer! Just think. He decided to take his mistress to the dinner he was supposed to. Lord Lunette, she knew he was an idiot, of course. But I didn't expect him to abandon his own daughter-in-law so quickly. This only deepened the mistrust of him. Thisbe decided to approach the princess and the count, whom Malone told him to quickly follow Count Lunette. This could lead to a huge scandal, so they should at least try to reconcile. Soar asked his fiancé what was wrong with her. Thisbe said she would follow Princess Marcia. She wished she could follow the Lord. But she knows all too well what it's like to feel alone in a glittering ballroom. Marcia noted that although they were both princesses, one of them was simply a laughingstock. She believed Thisbe had come to laugh at her. Thisbe noted that she herself was called a murderer, and how, in such a position, she could mock her. Marcia said that if she wanted to comfort her, she would probably refuse. Thisbe said she was always taught that helping those in need was a noble trait. She seemed to have no handkerchief to wipe away her tears. Marcia nevertheless took one from the princess. Marcia was grateful, because she was so confused that she was talking nonsense. Thisbe noted that she need not worry. because this is normal in her situation. Marcia thought that he would at least try to maintain the appearance of nobility, so she didn't really interfere in his dirty dealings. He brought that woman to the county. The count asked her in horror why she had come here. It was Camilla. This woman told him not to yell, because I am deaf to them, and she should ask, because he himself sent the invitation to her. Lunette snatched it from her hands and began to examine it. It was real. That meant someone had tried to frame him. Camilla said it didn't matter. He was bored with that woman anyway. Now that everyone knew about them, their relationship could improve. The count pointed out that she was sorely mistaken. He mocked her for wanting a serious relationship, considering she was just a commoner, but the woman said that wasn't the case at all. After which she asked him if he thought that everything would be okay, because she could come back and tell about them, and then he would have huge troubles. Lunette, enraged, began asking her who she was threatening. He pushed the woman, and she fell. Malone wondered where that bastard had gone, and didn't understand why all the scoundrels were always so nimble. If he uses his ability, he'll find it faster. Something bad could happen soon. After all, the lady has incredible intuition. The count said that he would go and look in the other direction. Although the Duke was nearby, he was forced to secretly use the gift. Sor immediately ran up to him and tried to ask him something, but was immediately distracted. Sor remarked that they seemed late. Thisbe and Marcia approached them and asked what the noise was about. The count sat on the floor and said that it was a mistake, and he just pushed her because he didn't want it to happen. Thisbe was shocked and began begging the crowd to let her through. When she got closer, she saw a woman in the water. 20 hours, 34 minutes, 22 seconds. Camilla Lederer died. The Duchess approached the count. She told him that she needed to hear his explanation of how it happened. She showed the invitation and said it was found on the deceased. She asked the aristocrats if they knew what it was. Lunette knew it was an invitation to a dinner party. The Duchess said she didn't remember inviting her here. So this invitation is a forgery. However, it is listed as sent by Lord Lunette. The man began to make excuses and said that he did not remember sending such a letter. He shouted that it was Princess Thisbe who was trying to slander him, and he was sure of it. Sor decided to ask the gentleman if he had proof. When he hastily ran away, leaving his bride alone, it was Thisbe who followed the princess, worried. If he accuses her based on his own personal convictions, he will pay dearly for it. Lord Lunetta's mistress, who was only supposed to catch him infidelity, dies unexpectedly, radically changing the situation. But there are other variables. Marcia said the Duke was right. The princess was with her when it happened. After all, there are people in this place who trust her. Lunette said that if he went, the same would happen to her whole family, and asked if she felt sorry for her own family. Marcia reported that there was no way, and added that it was all over between them. Lunette was simply in shock, and began to ask her if she really thought she would be okay after all this. Without his family's support, she'll be out on the streets in no time. It's pointless trying to portray him as the villain. He has no evidence himself. The woman's fall was pure accident. The woman asked if there was any evidence. She reported that she saw everything that happened then. She noticed a shoe in the lake, after which she looked up and saw a woman there asking for help. The count held her hand, and she thought that if she died, no one would be able to tell of his misdeeds. Camilla asked him what he was doing and told him to pull faster. She admitted she had been a little rude, and she promised she wouldn't tell anyone anything about him. It's so far away, the girl can't see anything. Things seem bad. Lunette apologized to her and let go of her hand, saying that he still had to marry that woman. She, however, knew that he would never have sent her that letter. This is what happens when you show up at a fake invitation. She couldn't quite hear what they were talking about, but she saw how desperately the girl clung, even leaving a scratch on the Lord's hand. The men immediately grabbed him and began looking at his hands. As the witness said, there was a wound on his hand. The Duchess ordered the soldiers to arrest him immediately. Thisbe told the twins they had done a good job. Malone said he was on his way out. Thisbe was surprised he was returning so quickly. Malone noted that preparations for the escape weren't yet complete, so there was one more thing to take care of. Until this moment, he knew about it only from the lady's words, but he felt something. Duke Salvador, he's a dangerous man. The lady has only just recovered from Killian's betrayal, so he doesn't want to embarrass her with his vague suspicions. All that's left is to gather information personally. Sor approached his fiancée and remarked that he thought she had already gone somewhere. Thisbe noted that there were too many people around the lake right now, and it wasn't a good idea to linger there. They met for the first time in a long time. For some reason, All their meetings end the same way. Sor points out that she's not to blame for anything and asks her not to blame herself. He asked her if she remembered what she had recently promised him. Thisbe remembered the promise. Sor said he would make sure no one could slander her again. He would do everything to ensure she didn't suffer and could always smile. To do this, she simply had to say one word: I want. She didn't know if it was because she had relaxed after a stressful day or because his words were as sweet as a dream. But a quiet voice deep inside her told her she could dream just once. That day, she said something she shouldn't have. Thisbe said what she wanted. Sor said that he would definitely do it and began to hug his bride. Even if he had to turn everything around her into hell, he would definitely do it. The servant asked his master what they would do with Lunette. Sor said he wasn't even worth worrying about, so they would leave him alone. Especially now, with the press focused on Thisbe, his death would only backfire. Instead, they should eliminate the source of the threat. That is, Estelle. She accepted the repeat invitation to Concuquier. Sor did not understand at all how she had the conscience to refuse a position for which another person was fighting at the time, and then take it up again without difficulty. It's even better. He won't have to change his plans. They were waiting for him. The man said he would take him to the negotiating point. Looks like it's Estelle's turn to go out soon. She's very nervous. Estelle asked Thisbe if the criminal she spoke of was really there. The lady said there was no need to be afraid. After all, that's why she's here. When the torches flare up on the summit of the sacred mountain, their light can be seen from the main hall of the imperial palace. Therefore, the Konkukje ceremony attracts both nobles and important government officials. This is the tradition at the imperial palace. However, in the sanctuary itself, only the priests performing the ritual are present, which is ideal for catching the criminal. Estelle said there were 2 saints in the sanctuary. Even though the princess was able to get in thanks to her abilities, the priests might try to drive her out. Thisbe said she needn't worry, because she'd sent something just in case. It's wonderful that Iller will be attending the Konkuki ceremony. Indeed, the reason she initially didn't want to participate was because of harassment from Princess Callisto. That's what the aristocrats thought, and suddenly they wondered if the princess herself would be present. By now, she must have ripped all the curtains in a rage and locked herself in her chambers. Suddenly, Sor came up from behind and asked for forgiveness, noticing what they were discussing so animatedly. After which he asked if they could tell him what interesting thing they were discussing. The aristocrats immediately began to say that, of course, they were talking about the Konkukje ceremony. It was so exciting. The dedication ceremony of the new saint. Sor noticed that they couldn't even discuss the matter to his face. But this is the end, because soon there will be only one holy point left in the empire. A man asked another if it was true, and the other said he had just heard it. Princess Callisto was in the sanctuary. Sor approached him and asked if he was sure Thisbe was in the sanctuary. The man said it was true, and the princess was definitely there. This was a clear disregard for the temple. The men began asking him how he could make such an important decision without consulting them. Killian, you knew this would happen. It's such a headache. You just had to let them know. Well, if this helps him win Thisbe back to his side, it won't have been in vain. The prince said they must maintain decorum. And they must not forget that the emperor of this country stands before them. They deeply apologized for raising their voices, fools that they were. However, the sanctuary is under the jurisdiction of the temple, and it took it upon itself to let the princess in there. The man asked if he thought that after such an act, he would be able to maintain a harmonious relationship with the temple. She's no longer a saint. It's beyond the realm of possibility that it was their mistake that made her a saint and then stripped of that status. However, when it's all over, they'll have to thank her. It was thanks to Princess Estelle that she decided to attend the ceremony. The man started asking him what it meant. The prince said they wanted to force Estelle, so he simply brought the only person she would agree to meet, and that was Princess Callisto. The prince said that if not, then he did not understand why he had to send the princess there at all. As they said, the sanctuary is the responsibility of the temple, and it would not be an exaggeration to say that the success of the ceremony also depends on the temple. Well, if it becomes known that he, who should have been responsible, could not convince even the saint, then God himself knows what people will think about it. Therefore, thinking about his reputation, he deliberately took on the responsibility, despite the protests of the nobles. And they, misunderstanding his intentions, raised such a fuss, so he'll ask again if they think the temple can maintain harmonious relations with the imperial palace after such disrespect. The man immediately fell to his knees and began begging for forgiveness. It looked so pathetic. If this happens again, he, as emperor, will impose severe punishment. They must watch their behavior. The men began to thank him. The temple's reaction was predictable. He was more concerned about Thisbe than about the temple. A servant knocked on the door and announced that Duke Salvador urgently requested an audience. He said it was an important matter, so he didn't know what to do. As I expected, it finally happened. The emperor announced that the priests could go and ordered the duke to be admitted. Sor began to greet the imperial son. Killian told him to get straight to the point. After all, he hadn't come here to exchange pleasantries. Sor had said he would be brief. The emperor must lead troops into the sanctuary immediately. Killian asked if he understood what he was talking about. No one is allowed to enter the sanctuary during the ritual. The duke should know that it is forbidden by imperial decree. Sor shouted that Thisbe was in danger. The heretics were targeting the sanctuary. Finally, today, the ancient god's light will be destroyed, and the new saint will meet death. All this is the name of their god. For Gigatsa, he is the god of the snake, and for his sake, they decided to do this. The man was shocked that they both wanted to go up to the altar. He begged the saint to change her mind. This princess is a criminal who has desecrated the sacred site with her intrusion. This is the message from His Holiness. He wants both of you to burn the sacred fire at this foundation festival. The man began shouting that this couldn't happen. Killian convinced the priests. Word of her appearance at the sanctuary had surely already reached all the nobles at court via the zodiac. The temple, in order to absolve itself of responsibility, to claim that her presence here was part of their plan. I wonder if everything will work out. They've never let her down. Thisbe believes the conversation went well. Well, now she had a legal right to be in the sanctuary. Estelle was also very happy about this. It is an unprecedented thing for a former saint and a current one to light the sacred fire together. It is like a ceremony of transferring powers to a new saint. If the criminals are truly after her, he'll certainly strike when she's most vulnerable, just like now, for example. But the arrow flew at Estelle. Thisbe was shocked that his target wasn't her, but the new saint. Thisbe shouted at Estelle to watch out. She missed the fire and took cover. Thisbe began to defend them and asked Estelle if she was okay. The girl began asking the princess what it was. It's good that the lady reflexively activated the power of the scorpion, otherwise they would have been in trouble. They've been attacked and need to get out of here quickly. It looks like they've caught the wrong animal in their trap. The price for using the forbidden power was the beast's eyes. You, who are ruled by the constellation of the Black Serpent, are alone on this continent. These are heretics. The priests did not understand at all how these impudent people dared to desecrate the flower garden. All priests were ordered to stand at attention, but behind him, his allies grabbed him and told him to remain calm. From now on, this shrine belongs to them. If they don't want anyone to suffer, they must serve the weapons and give them the shrine. They got in, taking advantage of the Foundation's feast. The heretics, disguised as priests, infiltrated the sanctuary. Thisbe asked Estelle to listen carefully. The girl realized it was the princess's voice, enhanced by mana. The heretic's target is Estelle. Word of this has surely reached the imperial palace by now, so she must leave the sanctuary and join them. There was no turning back, so she would be able to get back safely. Estelle agreed, because then the princess would be left here alone. Thisbe noted that she had once said that she was responsible for her own safety. Now she was powerless to protect her. These are just guesses, but for some reason, the heretics are in no hurry to attack. Thisbe asked her to try to take advantage of the opportunity and escape. Even if she was caught, she would likely be spared. Thisbe asked her if she could escape. Estelle noticed that there were small monsters nearby, and she could ask them for help. Thisbe informed her that as soon as she gave the sign, the saint should flee. The heretics asked what they were whispering about for so long, and ordered that the saint be handed over to them immediately. Thisbe ordered her to run right now. Estelle immediately darted to the side to confront the current head of the cult. She needs to at least summon him, but will it work? Thisbe decided that there was no need to think about it. She had to do it anyway once she got out. Previously, she could easily channel powerful, terrifying energies from the surrounding space, but in this sanctuary, the aura of divine power is too strong. There is almost no amana. Sor ran. The sanctuary was already close. He simply prayed to God that all would be well with her. He has a deal with the head of the cult, so he won't harm her directly. Well, if she gets involved in this, he won't forgive you. Even if, having learned the whole truth, she hates him, he will no longer be able to feel her warmth. Sor really hoped that everything would be okay with Thisbe, and that was the main thing. On the way, he saw Lady Iller in front of him. She screamed when she saw the Duke and His Highness the Emperor in front of her. Estelle screamed that the princess was in danger, and to give her a chance to escape, she remained alone at the altar, holding back the heretics. She needs help urgently. Sor shouted at His Highness that they needed to hurry. Killian shouted that he didn't need to repeat it. 2 detachments will follow Duke Salvador to the sanctuary. His Majesty's order will be carried out. Duke Salvador was the first to learn of the heretic invasion, which was not suspected even in the sanctuary itself. Although there's no direct evidence, something fishy is going on here. The servant reported it because someone delivered the letter. He said the Lord would understand if he mentioned the princess's shadow. The emperor realized it was the same one Thisbe had. The emperor said he knew him and ordered the letter to be given to him. The heretic's goal was to destroy the sanctuary. Explosive devices have been installed in the mountain range, and the final target is the altar. If a collapse were to occur, it would be the end of them all. The heretics understand this perfectly well. That's why they planted explosives at the summit. But the situation had changed. All squads except the first had to find and defuse the explosives. The rest must follow the emperor to the altar. They must show the heretics that their god is still with them. If most of the explosives are disarmed, the damage will not be as severe, and residents will have time to set up a protective barrier. The emperor has sent a messenger to the temple, so reinforcements will be here soon, but time is still running out. There are too many explosives, and they are everywhere. It is unknown when they will begin to act, so all that remains is to try to minimize losses. The emperor thought that she didn't need to die yet, since she wasn't born for this. Sor had fled from everyone, and the lady was defending herself. The scale of mana manipulation is simply incomparable. This is the true calling. The leader asked her where their arrogance had gone. He shouted that they should surrender. But suddenly, the man noticed that the girl had no intention of dodging at all. Thisbe said she'd already told them they wouldn't attack her. A rundown heretic's cult couldn't possibly have the money for a weapon capable of destroying the sanctuary. They can't do this without someone's help. They can't attack her, because that's what their patron agreed on. The leader was simply furious. If she had known that things would turn out this way, she would never have made a deal with him. If only the current saint would disappear. Sor noted that whatever they were planning didn't matter to him. He's a fool. The saint's death is just part of their plan. He will help them achieve their goal and pay handsomely for it. It's an incredible deal. Sor said he had only one condition. One person must not be harmed. But words are no guarantee. Her name is Thisbe Louise Callisto. If they dare attempt her life, his soul will belong to him. It's black magic. As soon as his blood touches this paper, the contract will be sealed. The formulas rubbed into this place are so complex that even you wouldn't be able to destroy them, so that's what he was counting on. He didn't understand how he, the inhabitants of an empire where black magic was prohibited, could acquire such an artifact. Sor said that he is faithful to only one god, and that this is more important to him than his own life. The dictionary decided he wouldn't let some girl ruin all his plans. If he didn't attack, he'd take her alive. They won't last long. She doesn't know how long the barrier will last, but she has to try. The first summoning requires complete isolation from the outside world. She can't rely on her 5 senses, only on the flow of mana. The magical energy flows have shifted. Could she really be trying to perform a ritual? The leader understood that she was only mastering the power of the constellations, so she simply would not be able to do it. He said it was the end and told them to follow him if they didn't want to get hurt. Suddenly, she asked who was finished. It was her first time, so she apologized if anything was wrong. Then she asked if they were ready to tell who put them up to it.